threat. She said his brazenness is unmatched. Defense attorney Mark Agnifilo said to the judge, "I just think we should trust him. He's not going to flee. He just deserves the chance." But again, at that point, the judge denied his release.
Defense attorneys now asking a judge to move up the October sentencing date. In Idaho, Brian Koberger pleaded guilty to all counts in the stabbing murders of 4 University of Idaho students in 2022. That plea deal spares him the death penalty, sentencing later this month. In New Jersey, emergency crews responding to reports of a plane that went down in a wooded area near Cross Keys Airport. This is ABC News. The Trump administration pausing shipments of some air defense weaponry that was supposed to go to Ukraine. It comes after President Trump signaled to Ukrainian President Zelensky on the sidelines of NATO that he would be open to sending more anti-aircraft systems. Ukraine could be moving to an agreement where they buy their military from the U.S. More from ABC's James Longman.
Donald Trump has got what he wants. He's got the Europeans to step up, and he is pulling back help. But if it's moving to this kind of commercial basis for help for Ukraine, I don't think that would worry the Ukrainians necessarily, but I think it probably does send another message to Vladimir Putin that American help for Ukraine is perhaps in the balance.
4th of July travel ramping up. More than 72 million Americans are projected to drive and fly this holiday period. According to AAA, that is a new record, even surpassing pre-pandemic travel. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Find what you love what you find. A Total Wine and More. There's so much waiting for you. Spirits and beer, thousands of wines. Guys in the know and prices so low, it just might blow your mind. You're gonna find what you love and love what you find.
With curbside pickup and delivery available, you'll always find what you love, only at Total Wine and More.
Drink responsibly, B21.
At Straight Talk, we are all about no-brainers. Calling grandma for her recipe, no-brainer. Streaming one more episode at 2 a.m., big no-brainer. Getting real unlimited data where you buy bananas, the ultimate no-brainer. Switch now and get a free Samsung Galaxy A16 5G or Moto G Power 5G 2025 with select plans. Straight Talk, real unlimited data. Available at Walmart and straighttalk.com. Offer valid through 7/20/25. Taxes and fees apply. Requires in-store activation of single line gold unlimited plan or higher. For network management practices, visit straighttalk.com/terms. Copyright 2025 Verizon.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives, a political discussion group about current events and other government-related matters every Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Right here on WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM, and streaming live on wsmn.live. Making sense of the inverted reality we are subject to every day. The Common Sense Conservatives are here to help bring you back to reality. Now, your hosts, Chris Wyatt, Todd McKinley, and John Grosvenor.
Good evening, folks. Welcome back once again to your weekly dose, your immunization against fake news, hyperbole, propaganda, and, well, the Biden regime's gone, so we'll have to focus on Keir Starmer, I guess, in the UK. But your weekly immunization against all the nonsense. My co-host in East Tennessee, the volunteer state, Sergeant First Class retired, Todd McKinley. Todd, how's it going?
Good, Colonel. How are you this weekend or this week? It seems like it's been just yesterday we had a show. It's one after the other, baby. Once a week's not enough. I don't know.
Well, it does seem to come up very quickly, but we're just getting ready for Independence Day, and not that Will Smith movie. It's just a matter of hours away.
Yeah, which was running on marathon last weekend for sure.
The 249th anniversary of our nation's independence. John Grosvenor in the studio in Nashua, New Hampshire. John, we're there next year, 250. President Trump will preside over the 250th anniversary of our independence, the Olympics in Los Angeles, the Women's Rugby World Cup in America, the FIFA World Cup in America. Boy, I tell you, it's win, win, win all the time for the Trumpster, John.
So, yeah, happy independence, everybody. Today actually is a notable day. Today is July 2nd. And, Chris, I'm sure you know today was the day that our framers decided to adopt the Lee Resolution, in which case to apply for independence from Britain was July 2nd. In fact, John Adams thought that was going to be our national holiday. It was July 2nd and protested to go to July 4th events and future events of that time. So, what was it? Signed August. I think our Declaration of Independence was signed August 2nd. before being shipped out. So a little bit of brief history. Chris looked like he's questioning what I'm saying here, though. But
No, I was just trying to figure out where you're going with this.
I just wanted to announce this. I mean, it is Independence Day weekend coming up, so
it is. Now, are you talking about? Are you
and,
talking about resolution by Light Horse Harry Lee?
Yes. Yeah, Harry Lee. Yep.
That's the guy, Light Horse Harry Lee, Revolutionary War hero among many.
Yeah. We had awesome forefathers, man. These guys had goonies. These guys had backbone. You know, they really stood up for something. A lot of people today could learn from these guys. Real quick, I'd like to announce New Hampshire. Speaking of independence, you remember back a while ago, I was talking about getting rid of the state automotive inspections, automobile inspections. They were mandatory, and the Senate slipped that into a budget bill as a rider, and it had passed and got signed last Friday by Kelly Wyatt. I'm sure everybody in New Hampshire knows that by now, but I just wanted to make the announcement in case some people may have missed it. I doubt they have, though, because it's pretty awesome. It made a lot of news, and I'm excited about it because I think that type of regulation is just ridiculous. We're adults. We know what our car needs attention, and we give it the attention it needs. We don't need a state interfere in our lives in that regard and cost us money and get people fleeced at garages. Not that all of them do that.
Well, any law that limits the scope of government when it's not acting in the common interest of the man and lady of the country, I'm all for it. Restricting government. Speaking of restricting government, boy, the courts are out of control again. A massive Supreme Court decision, 6-3 decision for President Trump last week on Friday, in which the court said that these circuit judges could not universally apply injunctions. And that makes sense because they have geographic responsibility and they're implying broad-based injunctions which affect the entire planet. They have no such judicial authority. It was judicial overreach from the bench, John. And now we see today another idiot judge on the federal circuit has put an injunction against Trump trying to strip the 500,000 Haitians of their temporary protected status. I mean, at this point, Trump has already won. It's been decided in the Supreme Court. So I say just go ahead. He's not violating your laws. What do you think, John? We just ignore that judge? Maybe arrest him.
I don't think these judges have this authority. They think they have. Didn't SCOTUS just make a statement regarding this matter saying you do not have any authority to adjudicate over the President of the United States? That authority resides right there at SCOTUS. They have that authority.
This was decided by precedent at the Supreme Court with the decision on Friday, and we still have these chuckleheads running around trying to pretend that they control the world. I think it's time to simply put these judges in handcuffs for violating it's violating the law. The law has been made very clear by the Supreme Court, and they're going to try and dance around it. What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, I think that was send a sharp message for sure. It's you toss a couple in the old hoose cow. I think you're going to have a couple people that are going to second guessing the power of the executive, which has broad authority. I understand having the courts, if you will, with the Supreme Court being a co-equal branch of government, but that not some local or some federal circuit court judge. You don't have the same authority as the Supreme Court or the president. So let's stop pretending that you do.
So Chris here is a judge of elections. Maybe he should start adjudicating.
No, that's it. Yeah. He's got judge in the name.
I've been a summary court-martial judge before, so that's a little bit different. That's actually legal. But, look, if Todd's going to resort to 30s gangster terminology with the hooskow, I mean, is that a Roscoe in your pocket there, Todd?
Yeah, that's funny.
That's an old gangster term for a sidearm, a Roscoe. Hey, listen, you speak of the who's-gal, Sean P. Diddy Combs. Boy, he escaped life imprisonment there. Dude was convicted of facilitating prostitution, but he was acquitted on the racketeering and the sex trafficking, which could have put him in prison for life. He is still facing up to 20 years. The judge denied him bail. 55-year-old P. Diddy Combs. I think he'll get a cursory sentence, to be honest. And maybe it's just, I don't know about suspended sentence, but a cursory sentence like 2 or 3 years and get out probably in 15 months in good behavior. I'm guessing this guy's incredibly connected and wealthy, and I'm surprised any conviction came down. It must have just been overwhelming evidence to convict him. Right. What do you think, John? You sound like you want to weigh in there.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I was looking at that earlier today, and I just can't believe the bullet that man dodged. I thought he was the next Epstein. I didn't think anybody was going to knock him off necessarily, but I thought he had the book and everything, and they were all this stuff was going to unfold and unravel, and it was going to come out. And it turns out, he gets some slap on the wrist kind of nonsense. He was because he transported a prostitute or something. So now he was involved in prostitution, and that's what they got him on.
Yeah, that's what they got him on. So it's interesting because I mean, while that's an offense and it can carry a long jail sentence, it typically isn't one that carries a long jail. I mean, if that were the case, the pimps would all be off the street.
Right.
Essentially, they got him for pimping. I mean,
Yeah, it may be a 10-year sentence maximum.
Yeah, but I mean, I
10
suspect
years.
he's going to get time served because he's been in prison for.
He will.
some
He'll
time now.
get that. Yeah.
Plus he's going to get a cursory sentence, I think, and probably a big fine, which won't even hurt him. But it's interesting because outside the courtroom, the typical crowd was dancing around like a bunch like the OJ nonsense. People turn everything in the race. This had nothing to do with race. It had to do with the guy's his behavior. And he got away with it for years. I mean, there was nobody out dancing in the streets, complaining about race when Epstein, went to jail.
Right.
It's only when one segment of society this happens to, it's always a race thing. It's not a race thing. People should be held accountable for their abominant behavior, or their abhorrent, not abominant, their abhorrent behavior. I mean, it's as simple as that. Look, I don't have a dog in the fight against P. Diddy. I listen to some of his music, some of it's decent, but the guy definitely, we knew about this for years, He's not the only one. It's the other dude like to diddle little girls there, who's been in prison now for a while. What's his name? His name was synonymous with that. What's his name? R. Kelly. R. Kelly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it's he was finally held accountable after years and years and years. Everybody knew he was doing this. He'd been charged with it. It dismissed, and finally went. These people who are wealthy, regardless of skin color, act with impunity as if they're above the law. And I suppose it's good to see the law holding him at least accountable in some degree, Todd.
No, absolutely correct. You think about this in Hollywood, you have these actors, the celebrities that know exactly who's doing what behind the scenes. And you think about these award shows that they allude to some of the behavior of people. People have made jokes about P. Diddy for decades. You go back to any number of producers and directors and stuff. People knew this stuff was going on. They made these little jokes about it, but they knew what was going on. But they loved their money, they loved their fame, they loved their career, so they didn't want to rock the boat about what they knew and who they knew about was doing what behind the scenes. And I think a lot of people are complicit in all of this and should go down just the same. But P. Diddy, like you said, he'll get like a cursory judgment. He'll do 15 months, 18 months, whatever. It'll be a short sentence. He'll be out. His money will be able to protect him. He's not going to be out in the entertainment world for sure, but his money will allow him.
I mean, don't count that out. I mean, it's Americans love comebacks.
Yeah,
Americans love comebacks.
Maybe
And he's very talented. I have to give him that. But listen, Todd, I did hear that when the verdict was announced that it wasn't going to be the sex trafficking, he wasn't going to go to jail for the rest of his life. I heard this afternoon Johnson & Johnson stock soared and sales of Johnson & Johnson No More Tears baby shampoo and baby oil were soaring. I heard all the shelves were empty in New York City. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know what's going on.
Somebody earlier said that Diddy paid off all the relevant people. Apparently now we think maybe it was somebody else paid off all the relevant people.
Well, I don't know, but I tell you what, apparently there's no baby oil on the shelves of the bodegas in New York City tonight. There's going to be a freak off celebrating P. Diddy's.
Somewhere, right? But all these people
comments are pretty good.
All these people have known about this for decades and decades and done nothing, But now all of a sudden they want to be seen as being brave and standing up to it. You were too afraid to be honest, and you allowed so many people to become victims because you were cowards in Hollywood.
100%. That's exactly the problem there. But hey, P. Diddy, I guess if you care about the guy, you must feel good for him tonight because at least he's not going away for the rest of his natural life. Oof,
dude,
man.
That guy's got guts. I'll tell you what, he was trying to play fancy with Mike Tyson one time. You see that video? Mike Tyson was like, man, he better leave me alone. I'm about to knock him out.
No, I didn't see that. What are you talking about, John?
Yeah, Tyson wasn't putting up with that nonsense. He was letting him have it.
That is like the weirdest voice for a man that's been like. By the way, I tell you guys, I met Mike Tyson. Did you know that? At the Chicago airport, coming back from South Africa in 2022. I was in Chicago at O'Hare, and I went down to get something. I came back the other direction, went through the middle of the terminal there, and here he came through security. And it was Mike Tyson. Right. Hey, Mike, what's up? And I had my veteran hat on. He's like, hey, I told you, how you doing there? Hey, I went over it. So we got a photo. I got a photo together with Mike Tyson, man. It's pretty cool. He's a nice guy.
That's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a weird trip. I kept running into all kinds of celebrities everywhere I went. Listen, actually on real news here, Israel, we'll see what happens with Hamas, but Israel has agreed to a 60-day ceasefire. brokered by President Trump and his team. So it's just, peace is breaking out everywhere. Trumpster got Iran and Israel to peace. Now he's, I guess next up maybe will be Ukraine. But, those demonic crap weasels there, Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin and the European Union just can't kill enough Ukrainians and Russians to satisfy their egos.
I mean, where's he getting his money? Is he getting it from European countries? We're not giving him any more money, are we?
I don't think so. I hope not. Who knows?
Thank
But
God.
no, it's definitely coming from the Europeans. But it's definitely not coming from the sale of tchotchkes. I'm not buying, Ukrainian nesting dolls. That's for sure.
Right? No, tchotchkes. I love it.
Yeah. So no, but a 60-day ceasefire. I mean, what do you think about that, Todd? I mean, just 10 days ago, Trump is leading us into World War III. He's a warmonger. And Alex Jones and Candace Owens and all these Tucker Carlson, all these people started dumping on Trump and and then next thing you know, peace breaks out. And suddenly they're all back in the Trump camp. Oh, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, I forgot to mention her too. Isn't that funny, Todd?
Yeah, all these people that love the coattails that the Trump gave them, love the resurgence of fame that some of them needed. They didn't mind the coattails then, but all of a sudden, whenever it comes to turn on him, hey, they're the first ones with the daggers out. We knew that was going to happen. So with some of them.
Well, you guys realize it is the Mideast, so a 60-day peace treaty may turn into a 60-second peace treaty. You never know, and then they can just turn on Trump again. You know how that goes.
Yeah, I think this is going to last a good portion of time, whether it's 60 days or whether it's a continuous peace after that. We'll see, but I think it's going to last.
Haven't we had problems in the past where people have made peace treaties with Israel, then a opposing faction starts attacking Israel and kicks it all off again, and suddenly the peace treaty is off the table, and it wasn't the people, it wasn't Hamas, it was, I don't remember if last time it was Hamas who made it, but another group, I don't remember who, went behind him and started attacking Israel and just kind of blew the whole thing out of the water.
Okay, yeah, but I think this has got a good chance of lasting for some time. We'll see. I mean,
but the ball is in Hamas's court. I mean, they're going to have to come to the table, and I don't think they want peace.
I think the biggest thing in this is we just handed Iran their hat, and they were funding all these people so much, and now they're like this going, well, we got no nuclear power left. We got to put our money towards nuclear power. So maybe we just defunded all these terrorist organizations over there in the Mideast. I don't know.
Yeah, guys, I don't think Hamas, they don't care. It's Stone Age. They don't care. It's these people that lead these countries don't care about the people that live in them. They don't care about their own citizens, their own people. They just use people. But that's the history of humanity. I mean, it's always these idiots that use religion or race or ethnicity to rally people to the standard and then go slaughter people in the name of whatever, I mean, so many human communities have been completely wiped out over the past 1,000 years in Europe and the Middle East alone. People who the Babylonians don't exist anymore, right? The Persian Empire doesn't exist anymore. And we go to places where entire communities, like in the Greek islands, you've got the Malian dialogue, the Malians. There are no Malians. It's now part of Turkey, but the Malians were wiped out by Athens. They slaughtered them all. And the ones that weren't slaughtered were sold as slaves into Anatolia, which is modern Turkey. So an entire community of people completely gone. And this has happened for millennia. It's pretty scary. There are people who've always used political power for their own self-aggrandizement. And that's what it's all about. It's really sad to see that, but I don't think Hamas wants peace. I don't think it's going to happen. Not going to happen. So
no, they want Palestine back. They want all of it. They want Israel out. They don't care if they eradicate them in their lives or what they do. They just want them out of the region, and they want the land.
There's one problem with that. There's no such place as Palestine.
That's right.
What do you mean? It's been called Palestine even when the Ottoman Empire was had control of it. It was still Palestine, wasn't it?
The Romans called the land of the Jews, Judea and Samaria and all these other places, after the Philistines, named it after them. That's where the term comes from. That the OGs, original gangsters, have. It's like the West Bank. It's not the West Bank. It's Judea.
Right.
Yeah. So no, I'm not buying that. That was the Palestinian mandate. It's no. Anyways, but the real problem with this is that Israel is a multi-party, multiracial, multi-faith democracy, the only genuine democracy or remotely close to genuine democracy in the region. And it doesn't matter who you are. You can live in peace in Israel as a citizen, as an Arab, as a Druze, as a Christian, as a Muslim, serve in the IDF, serve in the courts, serve everywhere you need to. You can own property, you can vote. But that's not the story that they want to tell people. These people that are the Palestinians are people who attacked the Jews in 1948, lost, got their hat handed to them, fled, to Transjordan, which is Judea, which is on the west bank of the Jordan River, and also fled into what became known as the Gaza Strip, and that's where they went. They multiplied like rabbits. There were only a handful of them back then, and many so-called Palestinians, which would be Arabs from that region, simply stayed in Israel and lived there because they didn't attack their neighbors, and they lived in peace with their neighbors ever since. That's pretty simple.
Yeah, that makes sense, and then proving that they can actually live in harmony with one another and get along as neighbors, as countrymen, for sure.
Right. These are. It's like, it reminds me of Western Sahara, when Western Sahara, which was a Spanish colony, was turned over to Morocco. They didn't like it, so the Salwahiri, as they're called, fought a conflict against Moroccan authority, and they were defeated, and they fled in Algeria. There are only a few tens of thousands. Now there are hundreds of thousands of them, because all they've done is sit in Algeria, being a thorn in Algeria's side for 50 years, reproducing in informal settlements. And now there are a whole bunch of people, and there's just a handful of people back then. So, yep. Anyway, hey, so let's shift the topic back to these United States. I always like saying that, these United States. So the big, beautiful bill got through the Senate on a 51-50 vote. That's a razor thin margin.
Right.
three turncoat Republicans. It's in the House, and it's not going well in the House. President Trump wanted to sign this on the 4th of July. I have a feeling it might not happen. Todd, what are your thoughts?
I don't think it's going to. I'm imagining that Trump's going to have to eat some crow on this one. And of course, over the course of the weekend and the Sunday shows, he's going to have people out there talking about, the who's and the whys and why it didn't get passed. And of course, who's to blame for it. And of course, make those folks famous. And I imagine you're going to see over the course of the next week or so, or maybe the next couple of weeks, people are going to challenge those turncoat Republicans who decided to, stand the president up, if you will.
Well, I think that what's going to happen here is that the Freedom Caucus is going to come under a lot of pressure, because that's where the opposition is in the House. The Freedom Caucus, people like Chip Roy from Texas, who are against this, and I understand why they're against it. And look, I don't like this bill better than anybody else, but it would be amazing to actually see the federal government pass a federal budget before a fiscal year and enact it during a fiscal year, rather than endless continuing resolutions, which has been much of our adult life for the past 30 years.
Well, Johnson just made a statement that they were going to get it passed tonight. If they don't get it tonight, they're definitely getting it tomorrow night. But that don't mean anything. You know how that goes. Make all the promises you want to, but if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But and he was also talking about other future resolutions here throughout next year and stuff. He says it doesn't end here. We'll have more resolutions. We'll have he's carrying out about how they can do things, move things around to get more of what they wanted or what they missed out on. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see if it gets in there or not. I mean, they're not required to get it passed by the 4th.
No, there's no requirement. I mean, there's actually no requirement at all. I mean, all we're doing is hoping we get a bill passed before 1 October, to be honest. That's when the fiscal year starts. But President Trump set the 4th of July, I guess, because he probably wanted to do like a 4th of July signing of this,
sure,
the year before. Is penultimate the next to last, or it's the last? No, it's the next to last. I think it is. So it's the penultimate. Anyway, whatever the case is, got to look the word up. I'm having a brain cramp there. But yeah, I think you just want to sign it for that reason. But look, I mean, guys, there's a lot to dislike in the bill, and there's plenty to like. Without a spending bill, without a budget that continues the tax cuts in the Trump administration, first time, we're going to see like a 68% personal income tax increase. That will break this country. Yeah, the economy will go in the crapper. Will go straight into recession as people have no money left because they're paying it all to the federal government, so they can waste it and squander it on things. And so that's one problem with this thing. So something has to be done to keep that from happening. Then Trump's got some tax cuts on top of it, some which I think are gimmicky. They only last in Trump's term. Then once again, they have to be renewed, kind of like these tax cuts were. But the 68 thing, or the previous tax cuts, that's supposed to be permanent based on this. But there's a lot to dislike. There's a huge extension of the debt limit, I think another like $5 trillion or something like that, which is insane. But here's the thing: unless Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid see significant cuts or means testing, they're going to have to extend the debt ceiling. They have to. They have a choice. So I guess the point is just do it all at once here, so you can get through a few years rather than doing it every year and keeping the government hostage. So I understand why they're trying to do it. I'm not thrilled with the bill, but there are plenty of things in it to like. The no tax on overtime, I think that's brilliant. That's going to drive productivity through the roof. I mean, just imagine if you could work, making $16 an hour and you're losing half that money in taxes, and then you work overtime, you're losing no money in taxes. You're going to want to work a lot of overtime. Working overtime is going to drive business for your employer. So. And then no taxes on tips. That's going to be huge for lower income people and people working in the service industry. So I think there's a lot to like here, but there's also things
that came with restrictions. So no tax on tips came with what was it, $12,000? So if you make $50,000 throughout the year, you report the $12,000 you got in tips, and you don't have to pay taxes on that $12,000. If you got $14,000 and $2,000 of it, you're going to have to pay taxes on. So it kind of came 50-50. You know what I mean? We were told no tax on tips turned into, well, with a cap.
So let's just put this in perspective. The way it used to be is you didn't report that, and then you voluntarily reported. Then they looked at what your wages were, and they used a formula to figure out what your tips were. If you didn't get those tips, you still pay taxes.
Yeah.
Now it's going to go back to voluntary, unless I'm mistaken. So I suspect a lot of people will get 30,000 in tips and report they got 12,000.
Right.
Well, yeah. It depends. You know, waiters and stuff now, especially with POS systems and things like that. Everything's on credit card, so it all gets reported anyway. Unless you're kind enough patron to go in there and say, "I'll always pay cash for tips." You know,
right?
And you should treat your waiter better than that. I would.
So what you're saying is you should facilitate tax fraud, John. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying
no.
you should pay tax. You should, so they don't have to wait on their money, Chris, so they can get paid that night.
Oh, I see. So they get the tax instead of waiting for that payment for credit card company.
I would never facilitate a crime.
What you as an individual do with the cash I give you is up to you.
It's your obligation to report it, not mine. All right. Okay. I'll accept that. But
the law says you should, and we'll do air quotes, report it. So therefore, that's the story of the day, right? Should report
I
it.
think you're right. But so tonight, as we're speaking here, we have a new assessment from the Pentagon saying that the U.S. strike on those Fordoor and the other two sites delayed Iran's nuclear program by as much as 2 years. This is in direct discord with what the International Atomic Energy Agency said, which said just a few months. I think that the truth lies somewhere between and closer to the Pentagon's assessment. John, any thoughts on that?
Sorry, I was muting myself out and trying to figure out what the noise was behind.
Todd, any thoughts on that? And give him a chance to catch up.
Well, here's what I want to talk about, you know, on the Talking Heads panel right today. You know, John wants to mute people out. I don't understand. Who are you muting out today, John? Is it
myself?
Me?
I had background noise. This guy down below me here making all this noise with his weird music, whatever he was playing.
Right.
It definitely wasn't listening to WSMN, I can tell you that.
1590 AM, 95.3 FM, right?
That's right. wsmn.live if you're listening at home. So yeah, I don't know what he was listening to, but how disappointing. I mean, not listen to WSMN. Somebody's got to correct that guy.
Well, you've just saved me the bottom of the hour station identification. Thank you for that, John. I don't think it was your intent, but now I don't have to do it.
It sure did work out well, though, didn't it?
It sure worked out well. So, Todd, back to you. The Pentagon assessment says that they've delayed Iran's nuclear program by up to 2 years. The International Atomic Energy Agency says, no, it's more like a few months. I think it's somewhere not in the middle, closer to the Pentagon assessment. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say the Pentagon's probably closer to being correct, whether it's 2 years, 1 year, it's probably around that. And of course, I think we can continue to monitor it. If we need to do something, you know, in the near future, by all means, we're going to do it again, just to show that the first time wasn't a fluke. And like, listen, you're not going to get a nuclear weapon. Let's be done with that. Move on. Hopefully it'll spark Iranian regime change, which is going to have to come from the Iranian people anyway.
Well, wouldn't that be nice? But we don't see that coming anytime soon. And it's official, ladies and gentlemen. If you're tuning in tonight, the United States Agency for International Development started in 1961 by John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., son of a bootlegger and former ambassador and former naval officer and president of the United States, assassinated in office in 1963. Founded the United States Agency for International Development, which now is gone. As of today, it no longer exists. 10,000 employees no longer employed at USAID. Tens of billions of dollars of aid programs that it ran either canceled or transferred to the State Department. This is a bellwether change in how the U.S. will be doing aid in the future. And it looks like we're shifting from aid for the most part and trying to force the concept of trade. A lot of people belly aching about this and all over the world, both sides of the Atlantic. Todd, have you followed this story at all?
Well, I'm happy to see that that organization is folded and is done away with. And, you know, any foreign aid program should be handled by the State Department and done so on a very particular, you know, a set of basis, if you will, you know, like what's the need, you know, when do we end, you know, what's the dollar cap amount? And of course, who has line item veto? Is it the secretary? Is it the president? Who controls the money? not some bureaucrat down the line, but controlled at the highest levels, the president or the secretary level. I think that's where it should be held at.
Well, in fact, what a lot of people don't know is there's been a struggle with USAID over the past 25 years. And of course, I was caught up in the middle of this, working in the Pentagon and working in embassies. And what was going on is that George W. Bush subjugated USAID, which had been an independent agency, to the Department of State. And that shackling did not go very well. They did not like that. They fought tooth and nail against each other, and it disrupted our foreign policy and our aid programs for a number of years. And they merged their budgets, and they were essentially merged in many respects. And now it's just official. USAID is gone, and their lovely building, which is right off of Pennsylvania Avenue there, is now being transferred to the FBI, if I'm not mistaken. The Federal Bureau of Investigation will move from the Hoover building over to the Reagan building. And I'm sure they'll like the digs. It's a much newer building, much nicer. But
Right.
USAID is no more, John. We are no longer giving handouts from USAID, and a lot of people not happy.
It's not hurting my feelings. It's I also did hear that what was it? Department of Justice did some investigations with Medicaid and recovered $14.6 billion worth of fraud here recently.
Yeah, well, look, I've worked with USAID, and I don't have a beef with USAID. What I have a beef with is Congress. Congress creates
Right.
all these programs, and then they force federal agencies to implement them. But I definitely get the point that Todd was saying, that foreign aid should be something that belongs to the State Department, which is our agency responsible for foreign assistance and foreign cooperation,
Right.
not an independent agency. Why did Kennedy ever make an independent agency? Probably because the State Department was run by a bunch of old white guys from Ivy League back when he was the president. And it's still run by a bunch of people from the Ivy League, but they're not all old white guys now.
Right. Yeah. Well, there are a lot of ideologues now versus a bunch of old white guys these days, right?
Exactly. That's
got
the
it.
difference.
For that to have been created, I think it would have taken an act of Congress, would it not?
I'm trying to remember if he needed Congress to authorize it.
Congress
They
is
had to
terrible
pay for
about
it.
this because they always want to delegate their powers to somebody else,
Sure.
a regulatory agency, and everything goes to they don't get anything done, and they turn around and abuses start coming from these things.
Yep.
You just open up a big ball of problems here constantly. I'm sitting there looking at a congressional committee from a hearing they had in 2010 on drug cartels controlling our officials in government. In 2015 years ago, they had this hearing. What come of it? Whatever come of it? We still got all these problems going on here at our border. We got all these problems going on with drug cartels infiltrating our forms of government or government officials. That nothing ever comes from these hearings. They just data collect out of them. They get information out of them, but they never turn anything. That no fruition comes out of it.
Yeah, well, that's all true. But on the USAID thing, I don't want to let go of the story quite yet because it's a big deal, which a lot of people don't realize. This is how we're seen by a lot of people around the world. But what I have to say is that the intent was to help the world, and part of what we were hoping to get at it was goodwill and access and influence. And we don't get goodwill and access and influence in many
Right.
places. We get abused and mistreated. And USAID has turned some people into perpetual beggars, and especially in places like Africa, countries that are perpetually begging and coming back. For instance, the President's Emergency Program for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR, created by George W. Bush in 2003, was a 5-year program initially intended to spend $3 billion per year for 5 years, $15 billion, spending $1 billion on prevention, $1 billion on care, and $1 billion on abstinence. And that's what's supposed to happen. That turned into $43 billion of expenditures over that 5-year period, not $15 billion, because Congress loved it and poured money in the program. We allowed the world to become dependent on suckling on the U.S. taxpayers' teat. And that 5-year program has lasted 22 years. 22 years. Only a handful of countries have actually taken advantage of that in an effective manner, like Botswana. When Botswana began participating in the PEPFAR program, 38% of the adults in the country were HIV positive. You want to talk about a pandemic. That's frightening. 38. So you had almost a 1 in 2 chance of being in bed with someone who is infected with HIV. It's crazy. Well, that figure's down to around 12 to 14% of Botswana now. They have made good use. They've also taken responsibility for the program and have picked up nearly all the costs over those 22 years. Whereas South Africa continues to rely on America. Now we've canceled it. We're the evil people because we canceled the program. When the government of South Africa has taken no responsibility for this, and the first reaction when Trump suspended this aid which had nothing to do with PEPFAR. It was suspended because of South Africa's actions. When they first did, they said, "Oh, it doesn't matter. Americans, it's only 17% of the money spent on HIV." Only for the truth to come out weeks later. Number one, most of the monitoring, surveillance, tracking people with HIV and the spread of HIV and the control of HIV was done through programs funded entirely by the U.S. taxpayer. In addition to that, many of their antiretroviral programs for people who are afflicted with HIV and have low CD4 counts was funded by the American taxpayer. And so many tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people can no longer get access to the life-saving medication because we've canceled this program because of the behavior of the South Africa's president. And research into treatments and care have been virtually suspended. Almost every single program of note in South Africa at their universities and research centers is funded entirely by the U.S. And now that funding and research has stopped and all the monitoring has stopped. And so the truth comes out. But these arrogant people said that, well, we don't need this. The Americans, they don't do much. Well, we do a lot and we get no gratitude for it. So it's getting a little frustrating.
We get treated like a doormat, but I suspect we do this because we think we can influence the globe with money. What was
well,
it?
There's
Didn't
also
Biden
an element.
get caught doing that there in Ukraine prior to the war, where he said something about you do what I want you to do, or we're going to cut off your funding. And
Oh, but that had a lot to do with his son's crooked deals with Burisma.
Right.
yeah,
That's
That's
that
what
one
that
did.
had.
but
the
they
USAID is
they
innocent of-
control things and influence things to their favor. That's the whole point.
Yeah, but that was an
when you want to
individual-
set policy and like
But
say
that was-
DEI and
That was an individual crooked criminal activity.
uh-huh.
AID
yeah.
is trying to influence nations and peoples to the benefit of the American country, of our country.
Right.
But there
right.
were three quotes that came out of
Supposedly.
this. Oh, yeah, I think they were trying. So there's three quotes here I want to cover. First is from George Walker Bush. He said, "You showed great strength of America through your work." This is to USAID employees as a recorded message, and that is your good heart. He says, "Is it in our national interest that 25 million people who would have died now live? I think it is, and so do you." That's people who are alive because of the money that taxpayers have paid, the $140 billion we've given to keep those people alive. Meanwhile, people live homeless in Appalachia, and we've got other issues in this country. Barack Obama said, "Gutting USAID is a travesty, and it's a tragedy because it's some of the most important work happening anywhere in the world." Well, I think stopping Iran from having a nuclear weapon is probably the most important work that's happened this
Right.
year in the world.
Right.
And then longtime humanitarian, stick his nose in everything, Irish singer Bono from
Oh, here we
U2
go. Here we go.
spoke to millions of people. He said, could have died because of the cuts. He said, "They called you crooks when you were the best of us." Yeah, you can shove it in your cake, Bono. There's plenty of the best of us, not just the USAID. I'm sick of people like this. Anyway, USAID is gone. It's history now. Will it be resurrected in a Democratic administration? There's a chance of that, unless Republicans control one of the branches, the executive, the legislature. But I think it could come
Right.
back in the future. Do you think they'll try to bring it back, Todd?
No, they're going to try something, whether it's USAID or some other nonsense, pie in the sky. But you know what? It had a usefulness. We tried to use it for something, and of course, it didn't work. We should have ended the experiment a long time ago. Whether it's the PEPFAR, whether it's USAID, whatever, use the money elsewhere. If the experiment doesn't work, let's admit that it doesn't work and move on from it. And allowing USAID to run amok on the global scale, I think undermined our nation's best interest versus having it controlled under State Department or under the White House directly.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, my only major issue with the USAID is the arrogance of the leadership of the organization and then this constant battle with the State Department. That
Right.
was frustrating. And to be honest, beyond that, I worked with a lot of good AID or aid officers, as they're called.
Sure.
Really talented, patriotic Americans. But there are a handful of them that had their head up their backside when it came to working with the military. And I really had no respect for that handful of people. And those people made it very difficult to do things. And the perfect example of this would be Iraq in 2003. In Iraq in 2003, the State Department and the AID were such a pain, and Paul Bremer was so useless that the whole thing deteriorated. We wound up with an insurrection and a war that was unnecessary and sectarian violence that could have been avoided if the plan had been followed. But
Yeah.
all three actors, the State Department, the AID, and the Pentagon, all had their heads up their backside, or they were navel gazing and not paying attention to the mission at hand. And all these people died needlessly, and we lost a lot of goodwill in the Middle East. Remember, they tore down the statues of Saddam Hussein and cheered the Americans' tanks as they rolled through the streets. And just 3 months later, people were throwing Molotov cocktails and killing our soldiers.
Yeah, absolutely. Because nobody wanted to listen. It was a tinderbox basically ready to go off. And if you dissolve these agencies that was, that had bath elements in it. If you dissolve them outright, this is what's going to happen. And that's exactly what happened. They didn't listen to us, and we owned it after that.
Well, we made no effort at de-Bathification like we did with denazification
Right.
and de-empirism in Japan. The same sort of process had to happen in Iraq. Otherwise, these people have this worldview. It's screwed up, and they wind up in positions of authority as judges and police chiefs and officers in the military. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, how naive and stupid are these people? You know, I've come to the realization here, Todd, as I've grown a couple of days older in life here, is that when you're young, you look to these politicians and you think they're actually smart people because they're in office. That must mean they're smart. Nope. Bunch of ambulance chasing shyster lawyers and useless frauds and used car salesmen, many of them. Some are genuine and patriotic, but most of these people have no idea what they're talking about. I get a kick out of watching idiots go before finance committees in Congress and then grill the nation's largest bankers. So tell me, Maxine Waters, how much money did you at JP Morgan make from student loans last year? He says nothing.
Right. Zero.
How can that be? Well, Barack Obama stole, he didn't say it, my word. Barack Obama stole the student loan program, which was guaranteed by the federal government, but funded by private institutions for the benefit of American students. And now it's run by the taxpayer. The taxpayer is footing the bill. She's like, what? Yeah, you idiots voted for this. You approved it. And you're sitting there, and she was in Congress. It just shows you a bunch of idiots. So my faith, you know, and I look at these people and I see them say things, they're fully not informed. And it just really, you know, I look at a box of rocks, and sometimes I wonder if I'm looking at a more intelligent, you know, sentient species of rocks than I am of human beings in Congress. And it's just, there's some really dumb people out there.
Yeah.
Speaking of dumb people in Congress, Hakeem Jeffries says that every Democrat will vote against the bill, whatever the bill is, just because the Republicans are behind it, Todd.
No, absolutely. You know, it's funny as some of these members of Congress, whenever they grill people in these hearings, and whenever these members that are being grilled or whatever, they turn it around on the person and says, well, you realize you're the one who voted for this, right? And then they're like, what? And then it's like, yeah, you also are the one who sponsored this bill that we're talking about. It's like, you know, it's like you're grilling me about it, but you're the one who helped write it and you voted on it. You know, all of a sudden they don't know what to say at that point.
Yeah, John, do you have any hope? Do you think that the people that are in Congress or in the state legislature are actually brighter or smart? I mean, or
No, I don't
becoming
think
jaded?
I kind of don't think they're bright. I mean, there's some of them that are really intelligent. Rand Paul, I give a lot of credit to. Thomas Massey, I'll give a lot of credit to. There's quite a few of them that I think they got their act together. But look, Nancy Pelosi said herself, we had to vote on it to know what was in it. How stupid could you be? That doesn't get dumber than that.
And the press went right along with it and backed her, you know. Meanwhile, you know, Barack Obama is illegally using Lois Lerner and the IRS to destroy the tax status of Tea Party groups because they were a real threat to his political power base. And they illegally, in violation of the Constitution, used federal agencies to shut down Tea Party groups and stop the movement. Yep. Then we had the frauds who joined on, the people who claimed to be Tea Party, people like Marco Rubio, Michelle Bachmann, who weren't really Tea Party people. And here we are, all these years later. And then people are like, oh, this thing came from nowhere, Donald Trump. No, the MAGA movement was there before there was MAGA movement. It's just that a lot moved over to Trump.
It got repackaged, and of course it got a remissioned, if you will. It's like, hey, we have a mission now. This is the mandate. Let's move forward with this versus what you were doing beforehand, which was really nothing. You got co-opted by the establishment. You sold yourselves out. And it's like, hey, you don't have to do that. Let's rebrand ourselves and repurpose it under this new thing called MAGA.
Yeah. So someone in the chat, one of the chats, I think it's one of my viewers from South Africa said, so about talking about John, and he said they're saying that John has the best studio of the three of us. So let me let you guys in a little secret here. He's actually at the radio station, and you know the reason that we get so little pay for doing what we do every Wednesday night, we're paid so poorly, is because all the money goes to that sexy studio that John works in.
Right,
you know, I'm going to take that up with the station manager. I'm tired of being paid so little money because you got nice toys there. You know, it's about time they start paying us properly.
Yeah,
I don't own them. I just get to play with them.
We're going to unionize or something, right?
That's right. Hey, you know, it's all these South Africans coming over to America, they're being disparaged by people in South Africa. And they have a phenomenon in South Africa where they're called car guards, where you park your car in a garage, you park in the street, and if you don't want it broken into, you pay the guy who hangs out there to keep an eye on it. They're called car guards. So it doesn't take any skill or education. or literacy. And so they're trying to disparage the South African refugees, saying, oh, go to America, man. All they're going to be is car guards. So we've been making light of that. I actually got a song called Car Guards, the Colonel's Funky Car Guard Crew. But I've announced I'm forming a labor union. As much as I hate labor unions, it's the Car Guards of America. It goes into effect on August 1st, and membership is $1,000 per month. You can deposit directly into my checking account, and we'll make sure that you're represented. That's just like any other union.
That's all right. Yeah, car guards. That's it.
You mean unlike the teachers union, you won't be flying around the country and jet planes and promoting DEI and all this other nonsense. You'll actually be doing something.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen. Speaking of doing something, Donald Trump op-ed in the captured Wall Street Journal, once a reliable conservative business publication, now a political mouthpiece. I don't know for who, but the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal says that Trump stiffs Ukraine on arms means more death and more Russian gains. Really? What's preventing Volodymyr Zelensky from going to the peace table? Then there'll be no more deaths. Oh, wait. Volodymyr Zelensky is preventing Volodymyr Zelensky and Ukraine from going to the table. Todd, do you think I'm off on that one?
I think you're right. And he also apparently owns suits. And I saw him in a couple suits the other day in some European meetings. So you can go to the White House with no suit on, but you can go to these European meetings with suits on. Yeah, it's a little...
Well,
disrespectful there.
Well, speaking of disrespect, I'm sure he feels a little bit disrespected. I feels like Rodney Dangerfield. Hey, I get no respect here, because he's not getting Patriot missile defense batteries. He's not getting Hellfire missiles or 8,500 artillery rounds and some other ammunition. So shame. But they've been cleaning out our cupboard, man. We're almost empty. We're almost defenseless here in America because, meanwhile, the Chinese are on the prowl and the Iranians are trying to launch nuclear weapons. And here we are defenseless because we're giving all our ammunition and weapons to Ukraine. That's not a good situation.
And that was Biden. Shipping that over.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, the shipments continued until recently. They were still, because they were already committed to. So we've been cleaning our stuff out. So these are things Trump says we're not going to deliver now. And people are losing their mind. And I'm like, yeah, you should lose your mind in a good way. This is good news.
Yeah, you don't want exactly leave yourself vulnerable to announce to the world, hey, guys, we're unarmed.
Exactly.
It's kind of ridiculousness.
We'd fire some patriots to defend ourselves, but we're all fresh out. We use them all in Ukraine. Well, the Army Secretary has fired his entire corps of civilian advisors, volunteer civilian advisors that advise the Army Secretary. 115 members of the civilian aides to the Secretary of the Army program, CASA program, they have all been sacked. Moving forward, the civilian aid program will focus on leveraging civilian enterprise and strategic communications, advanced technology, innovation, and digital transformation to advise the Army as we build a force capable of dominating the future fight, said Driscoll. That's Dan Driscoll, the Army Secretary. Yeah, well, there you go, guys. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal. That's a voluntary thing, but it's very prestigious to be on that Army Advisory Board. I don't think most people even heard of that before, Todd.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. There's so many advisory panels like that you don't know about, Homeland Security, any number of, the drug control programs, et cetera. There's advisory panels that are on there. A lot of them would go to civilian who've done something, say, with the administration or for the president. They're political dole outs, if you will. It's like, well, I can't use you on a day-to-day basis, but hey, I'll throw you on this advisory panel. But there are some people that actually use their advisors to actually give them some advice as they should, versus just them being there, as a honorary position.
100%. There's, as we switch from that to another topic here, one of the January 6th people convicted and then pardoned by the president has been convicted of conspiracy to murder federal employees, solicitation to commit violence, and threatening a federal official, according to court filings. Edward Kelly, sentenced today. He tried to claim that his pardon applied to crimes he committed 2 years after he was at the January 6th events. And the judge is like, no. As 2 years later, you're talking about killing people. No, your pardon wasn't for that. It was time framed on January 6th. So did you hear about this one? So he's going to get a life sentence on one count, plus 20 years and 10 years and two other counts, all running concurrently. So life in prison. He's also ordered to pay a $300 special assessment. I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, but people like that try to say, it's all part of it, just to be able to slide out of something. I'm sorry, you're a criminal, you're an opportunist, and the fact that you were pardoned for January 6th, just it undermines the people who were there just innocently, that were, caught up in the melee, if you will, who were doing nothing wrong. you undermine that because you were there to do something horrible and to commit a crime. So yeah, undermines that.
Well, this guy is from Knoxville, by the way.
Oh, watch out. Stay down there, buddy.
Not all that far from Todd.
Is he a cousin, Todd?
Stay down that way.
No, it's Kelly, not McKinley. So, it's by the way, Todd, what's it like having an entire mountain renamed after you? Isn't that pretty cool?
That's right. Well, it should be, right?
Mount Denali's back to Mount McKinley now.
maybe we should have another two or three more mountains, I think. I don't know. Not one, two.
I always thought Denali was a GMC truck, but that's just me.
Right.
Well, the Justice Department is exploring criminal charges against election officials. Ooh, and the left is losing their mind. So, election officials can commit fraud and crime all they want. We're not supposed to look at it. But the moment that the Justice Department under Trump starts looking at potential criminal actions by elected officials and officials involved in elections, suddenly it's a threat to democracy. Wow. I don't think so. I think the federal voting laws should be adhered to.
Right. Yeah. And if everything's on the up and up, why are you worried about it at this point? Right. You shouldn't have anything to worry about it. Why you care if somebody's looking into your job as a public official, elected or appointed or otherwise? You're supposed to have people that provide oversight, whether it's an internal, an inspector general, if you will, an ombudsman's program or a legislative body. You're subject to having your job, scrutinized. So why are they so worried about it all of a sudden?
It's a good question. I don't know where they get their worldview. It's pretty crazy, pretty crazy. But before we get to the top of the hour, let's go back to this story about this circuit judge. That is U.S. District Judge Randolph Moss found that the Trump administration had overstepped its authority and bypassed immigration law in stripping over 500,000 Haitians of their temporary protected status. His argument was that they acted outside the law because they were protected until like early 2026. And they don't have the authority to strip it. But I think on Friday, John, we just had the Supreme Court say, you can't do this. You can't step in like this. Because unless those 500,000 people are living in the federal district where he's a judge, they're not a part of the case. This wasn't a class action lawsuit.
People just don't know where their lane is anymore, Chris. They're all, it's like bowling, you're standing there getting ready to lunge that ball down the lane, and here comes a ball from the other side. Take your pins out, they don't know what they're doing.
Well, I've never had that happen, but I've seen it in movies, and it's hilarious when the ball comes from the lane. Especially like if you're about to release the ball and it comes out, it just starts to come out of your hand, just the ball comes across, like what the? Anyway, yeah.
Flying balls, taking out the lanes.
So I was watching this TV show the other night, and it reminded me of kegling in Germany, which is similar to bowling, where the pins are on strings and they come in different configurations. You have a very small ball that fits in your hand, a couple different sizes. I was watching that. Do we have that in America? Because this was a program based on events supposedly in California, and the family was at a bowling alley on these little bowling balls. Do we have kegling here? I didn't know that.
We have a little 10 pin bowling.
Okay, that's what it's 10-pin bowling must be. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I've never seen that before.
Is the same thing as candlestick or whatever they call it?
Candlestick bowling. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, it's a little tiny, and you knock them down, and the string picks them up, and it sets them right back down. Yeah, it's kind of wild.
It is. It's very, I remember when I was in Germany the first time in the early 1980s, a friend, her parents had some money. He owned a construction company, and went over to the house one Friday with some friends, and they had a kegling alley in their house. So we were bowling in their house. That was pretty cool.
That's pretty sweet. Yeah.
I like that.
Slightly bigger than the what shuffleboard, slightly or the what's it, the one you get at the pizza shop when you try to get in the hole, whatever. It's slightly a bit bigger than that. That's what it is. Yeah.
The pizza shop. What are you talking about?
You go to like play those games where you had the different rings, if you will. You try to get the ball in it, the hole, different. I don't remember what it's called.
Skee ball, whatever.
Skee ball. Thank you. Yeah. It's slightly larger than that. A little longer, a little wider, if you will. Yeah, than skee ball. Yeah.
You find them in arcades, Chris. They're little lanes with the boards.
Yeah. I know what skee ball is. Where does Todd live in 1976?
What? Come on now.
I haven't seen skee ball in years, man. I love skee ball.
It's still there.
Cheese. Come on
spitting out all those tickets, man. Rolling that ball up and hitting that 50 or that 80 right in the center. I was really good at that.
Cheese. Come on.
Yeah, and I was good where you could roll it up and bounce it off the sideboard, and then it goes straight up to the middle or the straight shot. I was pretty good at that. Skee ball. Going to places like Coney Island, places like that. affairs. Love that skee ball. But I mean, come on, Todd. That's like 1976, man. Come on, don't give away your age.
He was born in like 1976.
I know. I'm just kidding. Oh my goodness. Hey, border agents have caught only 6,000 criminal alien invaders in June. A lot of people excited about that. Also, the border agencies failed to turn any criminal aliens over for staying in America. They turned them all back, which is their job.
Yep. See you later.
Nice to see them doing their job instead of loading them on planes illegally without real ID and flying around America on a contracted flight at your expense, John's expense, my expense, and the audience's expense. For once, we've got people doing their job. It's very exciting, if you ask me.
Hey, if these Trump tax cuts work out, maybe it won't be at my expense anymore.
Yeah, but they're still funding these guys. So
either way, you're paying taxes, either they're direct or indirect. You're paying them. Every time you buy an item at the store, there's a tax to that corporation, and they're going to pass that along on the cost of that item. You're paying that tax. So it's at your expense.
On the day that Trump took office on January 20th, he issued an executive order effectively blocking access for those crossing for the illegal claim of asylum. Since then, the highest monthly total of illegal crossings has been 9,000. But on one day in late June, according to the Department of Homeland Security, agents made only 137 arrests of criminal alien invaders. That is the single lowest one-day total in a quarter century. That's more like it. And by the way, I think a lot of people know this. Over 1 million criminal alien invaders have voluntarily repatriated themselves for fear of being kicked out forever. Good. And that's a good path. Get out of the country, come back legally, get in line like everybody else.
Well, those are the honest criminals right there, right? It's like, okay, I realized I broke the law. Let me go back before I get caught.
Todd, stop, you right wingers. Coming in this country is not a crime. It's everyone's entitled to go wherever they want, whenever they want, John. I think that Todd is just an evil right winger.
That is within the human declaration, the UN's Declaration of Human Rights, to travel freely from country to country and all that nonsense. And that's what they base their nonsense on. But that's not within our laws.
No, we're a sovereign nation. We decide.
Yeah.
We decide.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the bottom line here. I think that somewhere, it's funny because I remember probably 10, 15 years ago, well, less than that too, people were talking about the erosion of sovereignty and how states have lost their sovereignty. And I said, well, that's true. And I said at the time, a lot of that has to do with social media because information can cross borders without being stopped and being interdicted. And people find out about things like the Arab Spring instantaneously. People find out about the Malaysian Airways flight 38 just disappearing over, wherever, the Indian Ocean, wherever it disappeared. People find out about things they might not have known about before because it doesn't come out until in newspaper days or weeks later. And that has had an impact of mobilizing people at the grassroots level, whether they intended to or not. I mean, you don't even have to people say, hey, come down here for a protest. All you got to say is, hey, this is happening. And thousands of people will show up just because they're following it. That is a power that never existed before in that fashion. It was hard. I mean, Paul Revere had to ride from village to village. The British are coming. I mean, how antiquated is that? Now you just go on your WhatsApp or on your Telegram, or you're on your X account, go, the British are coming. Next thing you know, a whole bunch of people outside with their muskets. I mean, they're automatic, they're crew serve weapons. I mean, they're what do they call them? Assault rifles. Yeah,
they're AR somethings.
Yeah, assault rifles. That's right. That didn't stand for armor light. It stood for assault rifle. Idiots.
That's right.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. But anyway, folks, in the next hour, we're going to talk about the conundrum, the sticky wicket that Keir Starmer finds himself in United Kingdom. Not looking too good for the socialist in chief over there in the UK, who's been bending over backwards to appease Donald Trump. Speaking of appeasing Donald Trump, guys, in the next hour, we got to talk about the day that Canada blinked. The Canadians were playing chicken with Trump and they blinked first.
Absolutely.
They have backed down, Todd. They've backed down. They on this digital tax, they've backed off of it after saying that they're going to keep it into perpetuity. And Trump said, fine, we're done. Walked away. He just walked away. Right. I love Trump. He confounds them. They don't know what to do. They expect, okay, we're here to have a conversation about trade. Trump's like, you're not going to drop the tax? We got nothing to talk about later. Let's go, man.
Well, yeah, he knew they were going to come back to the table. So he had all the power in that move by walking away.
So sometimes acting like you don't care means a lot.
Yeah,
they get built up in their head, and he's over here going, I don't care. I'm not the one losing here. So
he had all the cards in that deal.
Did you see that $81.5 billion in tariff revenue arrived? We'll talk about that next hour, folks. Stick around. Second hour coming up on the Common Sense Conservatives.
WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at wsmn.live.
ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. A judge has denied bail for Sean Combs. This after the jury reached a split verdict earlier today, finding Combs guilty of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, but not guilty of racketeering, conspiracy, and 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. Defense attorney Mark Agnifilo.
You saw that the Southern District of New York prosecutors came at him with all that they had. They're not stopping, but one thing stands between all of us and a prison, and that is a jury of 12 citizens.
Bryan Kohberger today pleading guilty to fatally stabbing 4 students at an off-campus house in Moscow, Idaho, in November 2022. House Republicans working behind the scenes to secure enough votes to pass President Trump's massive tax cuts and spending package. A mall shooting in Savannah, Georgia. The mayor says 3 people were shot with non-life-threatening injuries, and police say there's no active threat. This is ABC News. Layoffs are hitting Microsoft. The tech giant is cutting its workforce by about 4%, or up to 9,000 employees across the organization. Some financial relief for Waffle House patrons. A temporary price hike on eggs is ending.
It was added back in February when those egg prices were cracking new highs because of the bird flu outbreak. But since then, prices have moderated, although they're still about 40% higher than last year at this time.
ABC's Andrew Dimbert. The Trump administration is asking the Supreme Court to remove 3 Democratic members of the Consumer Product Safety Commission who were fired by President Trump and then reinstated by a federal judge. The European Space Agency is monitoring an object headed toward Earth that likely came from another star system. The object, called A11PL3Z, is a rocky asteroid or icy comet and is right now near Jupiter. Astronomers think it's interstellar, based on its odd path and extreme speed. Dave Packer, ABC News.
Now there's a new way to take charge of your blood sugar. Introducing new Garlic Healthy Blood Sugar Formula from the makers of the nation's best-selling garlic supplement. New Garlic helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels with clinically supported levels of garlic, plus a custom blend of vitamins and minerals, and it's odor-free. Take charge of your blood sugar with new Garlic Healthy Blood Sugar Formula. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Use as directed.
At Straight Talk, we are all about no-brainers. Calling grandma for her recipe, no-brainer. Streaming 1 more episode at 2 a.m., big no-brainer. Getting real unlimited data where you buy bananas, the ultimate no-brainer. Switch now and get a free Samsung Galaxy A16 5G or Moto G Power 5G 2025 with select plans. Straight Talk, real unlimited data. Available at Walmart and straighttalk.com. Offer valid through 7/2025. Taxes and fees apply. Requires in-store activation of single line gold unlimited plan or higher. For network management practices, visit straighttalk.com/terms. Copyright 2025 Verizon.
Continuing the legacy started in 1904, Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument Incorporated continues to provide the same high-quality monument, custom headstone, and stoneworking craftsmanship today that they built their reputation on over 100 years ago. Servicing Nashua, New Hampshire, as well as nearby areas in Massachusetts, such as Lowell, Billerica, Chelmsford, and beyond. From creating custom monuments to memorialize, to landscaping and granite work or restorative services, each job is done to your satisfaction and is backed by decades of experience and integrity. If you're thinking about stonework, think Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument. Visit online at gatecitymonument.com. Stop by and meet Roger at 321 West Hollis Street in Nashua, or call 603-883-7141. That's 603-883-7141. Gate City Monument. Memorials of distinction for people who care.
Memorials of distinction for people who care. Gate City Monuments, folks. My favorite commercial. Once again, there it is. Always a lead in to the second hour. I love it. I love it. I love it. Guys, that's pretty crazy stuff. I love that advert for some reason. Hey, Paramount, which owns CBS, has to pay Trump $16 million for altering the Kamala Harris interview just before the election. What do you think of that, Todd?
Good. I love it. Because really you think about it, that's $16 million plus and free advertising that they did for making it look good. I mean, it wasn't a true news interview because you doctored it. So therefore it made it a political ad, not a true news interview, period.
Exactly. And it also, it was election interference. They should have been prosecuted for election interference, actually.
Yep.
Yeah. So Trump claimed he had mental anguish. I think we all were cheated. I don't know about mental anguish, but I think we've all been defrauded by CBS, and they should have paid a much higher price than that. So, John, any thoughts on that one? I mean, Paramount, $16 million. They keep saying Trump loses all his cases when it comes to election. Well, there's one he won.
Well, I guess Trump can afford to take his wife out for dinner.
He doesn't get the money. Money's going to the Trump library.
Oh, he can still afford to take his wife out for dinner. The man's loaded, but yeah. No, I think they got their just deserves on it. Somebody over here I didn't know this was still going on, but somebody over here is asking, can someone explain why everyone in the U.S., including President Trump, are so obsessed with egg prices? Is it a measure of something?
Prices. No, I think that's trolling. No, I haven't heard the comments about egg prices since leftists played this game the first month of the Trump administration. The reason egg prices soared is because the Biden regime murdered 20,000 hens. They gave a bogus claim that there was bird flu, and they slaughtered 20 million egg layers. And so there was a shortage of eggs. That's why the price went up. It was all sabotage of the Trump administration. There was no bird flu crisis, just a bunch of scam, in my view. Anyway.
Yeah, it was like COVID for birds.
Is that like metalworking for dummies?
Something like that.
Anyway, as I was saying before we went on the break, UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer is in a little bit of trouble here, and also his Chancellor of the Exchequer might be losing her job. Rachel Reeves crying in Parliament. She's tearing up because people are picking on her. It's so hilarious to watch this. Hey, man up there, lady. Man up. You know, it's if you want to be the run with the big dogs, you got to man up. Sitting there crying in Parliament because people are attacking her pathetic policies.
Right.
Yeah.
It's Prime Minister's questions. Deal with it. Grow up.
Exactly, man. Watch PBS. Get a thick skin.
Yep.
I don't think you're going to get a thick skin there, but she'll get a thick skin in time to keep going, Heather.
Yeah, I love the Speaker of the House. That'll keep the backbenchers. They'll chime in on something. And we'll chastise the speaker, if you will, or the prime minister, and then we'll zing them back. But then we'll tell them to keep it in order. I love it. They have such a good system. The back and forth.
Match the decorum of this august body. Yeah,
I know it's hard for someone like you from Northumberland, but and they slide them or something. But you will maintain order in the house.
My question has always been, what is an Umberland if there's a Northumberland?
I don't know. There's always these Umberlands and stuff.
Well, there's New Cumberland, so I always wonder what an Umberland was. Okay, I'm sure it's some Anglo-Saxon or Nordic origin.
Be some sort of thing. Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, it's like all the places called Thorpe are all of Scandinavian descent. Any place is Thorpe, like in Ohio, that's not, but it just takes the name from England. We had Oakthorpe. Oakthorpe. Right. Thorpe is an Old Norse word. So, guys, there's a skeleton they found in Egypt of a man buried, and he was in a sealed vessel, and he was thought to have been a potter who led a hard life. And the reason this matters is because they have mapped his entire genome. Wow. A man whose bones were shaped by a lifetime of hard labor more than 4,500 years ago has become the first ancient Egyptian to have his entire genetic code read and analyzed by scientists. The skeleton of the man who lived at the dawn of the age of pyramids was recovered in 1902 from a sealed pottery vessel in a rock-cut tomb in Nuwautrut, 165 miles south of Cairo, and has been held in a museum ever since. His DNA was remarkably well preserved given its age and the hot climate, which rapidly degrades biological material. Scientists suspect the unusual nature of the burial may have helped the DNA survive for 4,500 years. Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, like where you come from as a species. That's wild.
Yeah, wow, 4,500 years. That's something else. I'm impressed that they can, take the DNA. But we've seen DNA come from older stuff. It's interesting. The thing I want to see is a Jurassic Park when it take some DNA from amber from like some ancient creature.
Right. How did you get all the different species? Like how did you do that? And all the dinosaurs that appeared on these Jurassic Park movies weren't on Earth at the same time with one another too. That's another thing.
Well, so what? Why be historically accurate?
Well, no, but that's the whole thing. It was Jurassic Park. They were regenerating these.
I get it, but it's like some dinosaurs that didn't even appear on Earth they were millions of years apart from one another. It's kind of funny.
One would be extinct while the other one's not even in existence. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Kind of wild.
But that eggs thing, he was seriously asking because of something to do in the break. They were talking about a Waffle House and eggs being 40% more expensive. But I guess as an explanation, because he might not be from this country, is that we had the egg shortage here in the last administration. And so it did become a measure because the cost of eggs become so high and so rapidly that it did become a measure how well we were doing as far as our purchase power and stuff goes. And if they went up 40% more, I'm not aware as to why.
Well, they went up more than 40%. Eggs went up like $2.99 a dozen, like
no, he's
$15.
saying they went up right now. About a Waffle House and egg price is still 40% more expensive. Okay, more expensive than last year.
Yeah, but there's certain staples of our diet that we keep track of, that we measure our economic, strength at, and that's one of those things. Milk is another thing. So it's one of those issues. If you corn is another thing. Frozen concentrated orange juice and so forth.
My grandmother that come up during the Great Depression used to always say, "What does that have to do with the prices of potatoes in Germany?" I'm like, "What does the price of potatoes in Germany have to do with anything, Grandma?" I don't know if you're familiar with that old saying.
It depends on how much is the kartoffel salad you want.
In a global market, it does count. It's all connected.
That's right.
So I love the way Donald Trump is so helpful with people. I don't know if you guys caught it this week. He traveled to the Alligator Alcatraz in Florida, and he's talking about, the possibility that illegal aliens would escape from that facility. He said, no, we're going to help them out. You got to be careful. Don't run in a straight line because the alligators get you. Just kind of, weave back and forth.
Zigzag.
Zigzag. You'll increase your chances by 1% to survive. 1%.
1% of survival. Well, hey, 1%. You can negotiate with 1%, right?
I gotta tell you, alligators are extremely fast. They look scaldingly slow, but in a short distance, they can really move. They get on the bank of the shore of the water, man. They come on that thing like you wouldn't believe.
Well, that's where they're especially fast. I mean, they're very fast in water, but what they're deceptively fast is that when they come out of the water, right along the bank, they move with speed.
Yeah.
But they're like a spring. They're just spring loaded.
Reading body language, when they raise their tail, it's time to run. Usually, but when they go on a short sprint like that to chase something down, they'll raise their tail first.
Well, I'm wondering how easy it is for 30-06 to penetrate their skull.
Yeah. I would rather find out from some distance, though, wouldn't you?
Well, I'd rather find out as they try to run through an open field to see how far they last.
You're talking about, okay. I thought you were talking about alligators. Okay.
No, I'm talking about the alligators. I'm talking about, not the illegal aliens. No.
Oh, man.
I thought you shifted gears.
There's Todd McKinley out there going, I'm going to be just like Chris, man. I'm going to take pop shots of these guys trying to escape.
Look, man, I mean, I've gone to the range and fired at moving targets, so that's not an issue. I'm not talking about illegal aliens. I'm talking about the alligators.
I don't know. Are you planning on eating the tails or making luggage or what's going on here?
The luggage sounds like a good plan for me. We feed the rest of the chickens.
The tail's actually quite good for eating, but I don't think any of the rest of it is.
I don't know. I've never eaten any alligator.
I've had some alligator before, but it's not something that's on the menu on a regular for sure.
It's by itself, it's kind of plain. If you blacken it up or something, it's really good.
Yeah.
Well, Trump is on the bandwagon again for lawsuits. He's refiled an Iowa lawsuit accusing the pollster and the Des Moines Register of election interference. Remember that the results that they falsely reported a few days before the election had Trump losing by a wide margin. The actual difference of the vote was 16% swing, and he says it was all cooked up data to throw the election. And it's hard to argue with that. I mean, how do you get something that wrong on election night? It doesn't make sense.
And the lady who was espousing it, didn't they have her on national news over the weekend before the election talking about the data and what it suggested, if you will?
And Seltzer, that's who it was, the lady you're talking about. Yep. So the complaint echoes allegations raised in Trump's original federal lawsuit in December of 2024 alleging violations of the Iowa Consumer Fraud Act. Yep.
There you go. I think it's he's got a good lawsuit there, and I imagine they're going to settle out of court, but it's another victory for Trump, for sure. You don't have to go through with a full lawsuit if they settle out of court. Whatever they agree to, you've won, I believe.
Yeah, at the heart of this dispute is the Des Moines Register's Iowa poll conducted by Seltzer and Company and published in the Register on November 2nd, just 2 or 3 days before the election. The poll showed Harris leading Trump by 47 to 44 in Iowa, and I called poppycock. I called poppycock on that when that poll came. I said, there's no way that's true. and very much at odds. Trump won by 13 points. It was a 16-point swing. So, yeah, there is definitely something weird going on with that poll, and it was an outlier, and they stood by it. So now they're going to stand by it in court.
Good luck with that. Yeah, you're fools to do so. And obviously, how are you going to justify, this poll? Who were you talking to? Did you intentionally skew it by asking, so many people that were likely to vote Democrat anyway? What was your methodology here? So explain that.
Well, it was definitely the oddest poll we saw. I mean, we saw a lot of polls that were off, but this was, I mean, even a layperson be like, that doesn't seem right.
You had to just made that up.
How can every poll in the state predict Trump winning by 5 to 10 points, and you're saying he's losing by 3, and then actually he won by 13, so even they were wrong. But that's way off the mark. Really crazy how far they're off. Did you guys see that Trump got another trade deal today with Vietnam? Vietnam will give us duty-free access to the marketplace, and we're going to charge them 20% tariffs, and everything comes in. Wow, that's really worked in our favor.
Yeah, big time. And of course, they realize that it's still a favorable market for them to do that. So it makes sense for them.
Even with the 20% tariffs, I think they can compete. They probably can. Can. That's a huge swing here. That's another victory for Trump.
Well, you gotta take into consideration. I mean, what are we shipping to Vietnam? How much are we selling to Vietnam compared to how much they sell here?
Well, very
little. It'd be work in their favor in the long run.
Very little because of the barriers, the quotas that prevented our stuff from getting in the country. Those have been eliminated as well. So we'll see what we sell to Vietnam.
Yeah, there you go. We'll see how things pan out.
Yeah. Hey, guess who the front runner is in a poll for the Democratic nominee for 2028? Anybody want to guess?
Yeah.
I don't know. Wait, I did know this one. Was it Harris or yeah?
No, it's not Kamala Harris.
Go ahead.
What are they pushing her?
Pete Buttigieg.
Oh God!
Of course.
16%. She's second with 13%. Yeah, former Vice President, 2024 Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris came in second with 13%, followed by Gavin Newsom at 12, Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez with 7 each, Bernie Sanders with 5, and Cory Booker at 3. Cory Booker, gosh,
God,
that is a rogues gallery of losers.
Wow,
losers.
Yeah.
I hear from a reliable source that AOC is most apt to be the head of the DNC, and she's the reason why they have to put directions on shampoo bottles.
But you see where America's heading. You're talking about these people heading these large bodies, the Democrat National Committee, running for, controlling the transportation, of the country, Pete Buttigieg. These people are running things in our country that are very important. And these are some of the dumbest people that we have in our society. And these are going to be running the country in the next few years. Come on now.
Well, that's a fair point.
Oh, no, Todd. No, hold on.
Oh.
They're not going to be the people. This is to our advantage because they are stupid.
But
easy to be. They won't be the people running this country.
But this is what I'm saying. Though,
the possibility, yes.
We can't discount them because they have every capability of getting into public office, high office, the House, the Senate. We're talking about members of the House and Senate, people that aren't far off from the White House in many respects here. And also, you think about Buttigieg, he was a transportation secretary. So he was a cabinet secretary. These people are very capable of getting in there one way or another. And we're talking about, election fraud that they have no problem, participating in. So there's a lot of things that can happen for these people to seize power in 4 years if we're not careful. We can't discount them for sure.
Pete Buttigieg, the guy was stand-up guy, though. I mean, he was riding his bicycle to work. I mean, did you see it?
From just around the corner,
where he's pulling the bike out of the back of the SUV 2 blocks?
Yeah, from just around the corner, yeah.
Just to show everybody what a stand-up guy he is and how he's saving the world from greenhouse gases, but he had that gas-guzzling SUV behind him the whole time.
John, aren't you the one to ask a question about but AOC and shampoo? I mean, are you trying to say she's one of those people who reads the directions and it says rinse, lather, repeat, and she's still in the shower?
She's just the reason they had to put directions on shampoo. That was I don't know if you realize or not, that was a John Kennedy quote.
Was it? But I think she's still in the shower because it says rinse, lather, repeat. Doesn't say get out of the shower, dummy.
Well, no, yeah. Until she runs out of shampoo and she got to get out of the shower to get another bottle.
But she goes right back in. Follow those rules. Yes. AOC. Yeah, there's the sharpest tool in the woodshed. Not. Well, the dollar's declining because of all the uncertainty and the tariffs and all these things. But as I said earlier, as we went to break, in April, the U.S. Treasury took in $81.5 billion in tariffs. That's huge. That's a lot of money.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, for sure. And but now I want to go back to the AOC thing here, the front runners, real quick.
Mhm.
We've got to start talking about that. Who's next in line here? Because if not, what we're going to do is going to allow these people to slide right in there, and the Republicans are going to just chop each other to bits, and we're going to be disjointed whenever it comes to taking these people on. We've got to be careful.
You bring up a good point right there.
I just want to be careful with these.
Republicans are very independent-minded people, or GOP or conservatives tend to be very independent-minded and outspoken about it. And a lot of times they shoot themselves in the foot and they bifurcate. That's a good point. The left is very, very good and skilled at keeping together and keeping their message strong. Even if it's wrong, they keep it strong.
Right. If it's wrong, keep it strong. Right.
Yeah. So they, you're absolutely right on that. They're willing to cheat. They've shown they're good at it and capable of it. This time around, they weren't capable of doing so because Trump had set up barriers on that.
Right.
He made sure he had people there within the polls to prevent that from happening. And I think the campaign did a good job.
Yeah, and whenever they get caught cheating, their side's never going to hold them to account anyway, because they think that it's okay, it's justified for them. So we have to be aware of that. So they don't care if they get caught, regardless. They're going to have judges that are complicit anyway. That's very likely not going to hold their feet to the fire anyway.
Yeah, isn't it amazing how they demand integrity until they're in charge?
Of course. Well, people on the right do the same thing as well.
Hypocrites on both sides. There's hypocrites on both sides.
Sure.
Hey guys, hang on a second. Yeah. Alexandria, could you get out of the damn shower? You're running out my water bill. Stop it already. Sorry, guys. I got
She's
distracted.
going to take that shower even when it gets cold, isn't she? She
My
ain't
hot
never
water.
getting it.
I had to get a triple size hot water tank for AOC. So she runs through all the hot water. So anyway, sorry about that, guys.
So you are dating her now. Okay.
Well, you know that all Republicans want to date her. Come on, guys. Be honest. Be honest.
Has she called her good friend Jasmine over yet?
Good one. No, I don't think she get her eyelashes through my front door.
You're not going to widen them for her? You need double doors, Chris. You need double doors on your house.
Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. It wouldn't be prudent at this juncture. There was no quid pro quo.
George H.W. Bush.
Oh my goodness! Remember that Dana Carvey? That was brilliant. Dana Carvey did the best presidential impression. By comparison, Chevy Chase's, Gerald Ford was pathetic. We laughed at it. But we laughed at it back in the day. Well, I didn't laugh at it, but people laughed at it back in the day.
He was so awful on SNL, but everybody knew his name and loved him because he had a little bit of fame, I guess, from the radio and other things that he did. So he wanted to branch out into movies. Like, you were only on there one season. He thought, SNL is launched me. Did a few movies and just kind of floundered after that, right? He thought he was better than he really was.
Perhaps, but I mean, my point was that his impersonation was not very good at Ford. Whereas Daryl Hammond did a good Bill Clinton that wasn't bad.
Absolutely. Yes.
But the best ever was Dana Carvey doing George Herbert Walker Bush. Not gonna be prudent. Wasn't gonna do it. Read my lips. That was really good.
Well, Phil Hartman did a good Clinton too, by the way.
Yeah, that's right.
He was really good.
What a shame Phil Hartman was murdered by his wife.
That's a tragic story there.
That is a tragic story. He was very talented.
I like the one where we went out jogging, went to McDonald's, and he's explaining warlords, how they intercept the Big Mac and warlords, and he takes a big bite out of it, and he talks about the person's fries, and see what happens with warlords, and he eats it. Never had to buy a Coke or fries at the McDonald's, though.
Yeah, no, he was very talented. I liked him in news radio. That was where he was really good. That was a good show.
Yeah, and all those guys that got their start out there, let's say with the Groundlings, Pee Wee Herman, if you will, Paul Rubens, and of course he helped actually develop the Pee Wee Herman character. Phil Hartman did.
Did he really? I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, he helped him to develop that.
No way, that goes way back.
Yeah, he was in the first stage production of it. Yeah, Phil Hartman was.
Oh, no kidding.
Kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it's really. I was still shocked by when he died, when it happened. I think it caught all of us off guard. Who knew that family had those kind of problems, but sure did. So, all right, we are waiting for the big beautiful bill, which is sitting in the House, and apparently it's running into buzzsaw there. And today is the 2nd. It's almost over. We've got tomorrow, and if they want to get the president's desk, they're going to have to finish it up probably right after midnight tomorrow. What are the odds? Let's put some Vegas odds down here, John. What do you think is going to happen? Give me some odds, percentage-wise.
Oh, I think they're going to try to push it through unless the left can pull something up their sleeve. But what are they going to do? Just not vote or not show up? I mean, that's just working the right's favor. So
there's nothing they can do because they've got the tiebreaker in the Senate and they've got the votes in the House. All they can hope is that the Republicans bail on it.
It'll get watered down, in my opinion, and it'll get passed, but it'll be watered down. But you'll have Republicans that are going to go back to the constituency and say, "Yay, we did it! Big beautiful bill, we got it."
Honestly,
all the pork that's going to be on top of that, it's just going to be astronomical.
I think they're going to pass it just like it is. Way the Senate sent it in. I think they already know what's in there. They plan on shooting it right on through. I don't think they plan on hesitating.
So you're saying they read the bill before they voted for it, John? How it goes?
I don't believe they have.
All they had to do was read the amendments the Senate put into it, but at that point in time,
yeah, they'll add some more pork.
No, they had pages. There was something about that where they had they took the time to have Secretary to pay whatever read every page of the 900. It took them 16 hours or something like that to read it all. That doesn't mean that every member of Congress was in attendance to hear it being read, but
no, it's just read into the record basically. That way they can say that it was read.
Yeah.
No, I mean, who read the 1,028 pages? What was that bill? I know I didn't.
It's supposed to be 900 and something.
Oh, I'm sorry. I embellished. Just 900. Okay. A big beautiful bill to me is one page. That's a big beautiful bill.
So do you think it is a big beautiful bill?
No, I don't. I think it's an abomination. But
do you think it's going to be a big beautiful disappointment?
No, I don't think so, because I think the Congressional Budget Office underestimates how much money is going to flow in the form of taxation after the tax cuts. And people are like, what do you mean? Well, when we get tax cuts, people have more money in their pocket. They have more money in their pocket. They save and invest. And corporations have more money. And they put it into capital and hiring people. And economies tend to soar within 18 months to 2 years after tax cuts. The first year will be a big dip in revenue, usually. But after that, it's going to soar. And I think that that's all fine and dandy. I just think that the CBO is Congressional Budget Office is underestimating how much revenue come in. And we've seen it time and again before. When the Bush tax cuts went through in the second round, they discounted how much money. And we set a record in personal income taxes in 2008, the highest ever, even though the final 3 months of the year were whitewashed because, the market collapsed and we had all these problems financially because of the subprime mortgage crisis. And despite that, it was still a record year for capital gains and tax revenue coming to the federal government. We've since eclipsed it, but that was for that time, the biggest in history. That's after 2 rounds of tax cuts. When Trump cut the taxes, we saw the same thing with 18 months, 2 years. We were paying more in federal taxes because we had a bigger pie, paying a lesser percentage, but we all got fatter and healthier and wealthier. But the left doesn't get that. They think this is a zero-sum game. There's only 8 pieces or 6 pieces or 4 pieces in your pizza. No.
Yeah.
Now, like Bitcoin, you can keep subdividing, you can keep creating new stuff out of thin air. Look at all the marketplaces that have been created, all the jobs, all the industry based off ideas on the internet. Don't even have to have anything physical except a computer and a data connection and power. That's it. You don't have to build, billion-dollar factories to make money. You can make money sitting at home, knitting little freaking tchotchkes and putting them on your table and putting it on Etsy, and next thing you know, you're a millionaire. So, the rising tide does lift all boats, and the pie isn't fixed. The pie is infinite if you are creative and have entrepreneurialism. And that's how I feel about it, John.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's not limited. Americans were known for ingenuity, and that's what we need in this country. And we need ingenuity. And the way you do that is create prosperity. If you don't create prosperity, people don't have the money to work with to build and create, establish themselves.
Well, I agree with you 100%. But I think the one thing we need to add is that as Americans, we need a shrubbery. We just need a shrubbery.
A what?
Bring me a shrubbery.
We are the Knights of Knee, and we demand a shrubbery. A what? Shrubbery.
He couldn't come up with something to demand, so he demands a shrubbery.
How about a basket full of gold coins? A shrubbery. Okay, that's just silly. Just silly. Anyway.
Was this the meaning of not the meaning of life? It was the one.
Monty Python.
Yeah, the one before Meaning of Life. I can't think of the name of it now. Holy Grail.
That's the Holy Grail. Yeah.
Holy Grail. Yeah.
Yeah, it's with the one with it's a vicious, mean creature. It's just a bunny rabbit. Oh, it's a mean rabbit.
Run away.
Brave Sir Robin bravely ran away. When danger reared its ugly head, brave Sir Robin turned and fled. Brave Sir Robin bravely ran away.
I love he has the coconuts. How did you get the coconuts here? It was a swallow.
There's no coconuts at this latitude.
A swallow brought them. The swallow can carry a coconut.
There's a breeze. It could, perhaps.
And he's using the two halves of coconut to act like he's riding a horse. That was the
Right,
Exactly.
Yeah,
It was-
that's his little troll. His little aide in the back there. Yeah.
Yeah.
His little hunchback guy.
I
What
thought
a
Meaning
great
of Life
movie.
was better myself. I love Meaning of Life. That movie was funny.
I think you got to be more adult, more learned, know a little bit about the Bible to get the meaning of life, or the life of Ryan. That's the
Life
other
of
one.
Brian, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Jabberwocky. Oh.
He says he got reading out a stoning. He says Jehovah, and then somebody throws a stone at him. He says, "Stop stoning me."
No, I think the best one, hands down, is the Holy Grail. That's just awesome.
It was fun.
Arthur, yes, Lord, King of the Britons. Who made you king? I didn't vote. We should have a system of democracy.
Right? Yeah.
I am Arthur, King of the Britons. Who made you king?
We are the Britons. We are Britons.
Well, you're the Britons. What? We're Britons.
Yeah, they didn't know
Standing
that
around
they were
in human mud and human filth. They were the Britons.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. The humor is just so good. Those guys were so spot. What's it? 50 years ago now. It's early
Right.
1970s. Yeah, that's crazy. Wow. John Cleese, Michael Palin, Eric Idle. Man,
Oh, yeah.
brilliant guys.
They're funny. They
Brilliant
used to have a comedy show, didn't they? On BBC.
Yeah, they had.
And,
Yes,
yeah,
they
it was
did.
like a
Monty
half
Python's-
hour or something.
Monty Python's Flying Circus, but I didn't
Yeah,
think Monty
yeah.
Python Flying Circus was all that funny. There were funny gigs in it. Like I like the one where I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay. I work all night and I sleep all day. You guys know that one?
I
That's
don't
pretty
recall
good.
that one. I recall the parrot. This parrot ceases to exist.
No, he's
From
just
a dead
sleeping.
parrot.
He's dead. No, he's not. He's sleeping.
Yeah, or whenever they had Mr. Hitler moved into the neighborhood, it's Mr. Hitler.
Yeah.
His usual 4 o'clock speech. He goes out on the balcony, gives a speech.
Oh,
Mr.
Yeah,
Hitler.
No, that was the show was good, but the movies were better. I thought they did much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also when they branched out, they had some really good stuff too. I mean, I think A Fish Called Wanda was a brilliant movie. We had John Cleese and
Mhm.
Eric Idle in that. Eric Idle in later life did all these travel things. Really talented. Those guys are so. It's like the guys that were with Second City in Canada
Yeah.
back in the day. Very
Yeah.
talented young comedians who just got it and really did some cool stuff. A lot of big names came out of Second City. Martin Mull. You had Martin Short. You had so many of these names. John Candy wasn't Second City, but a lot of these guys in Second
No,
City.
yeah,
really-
John Kennedy
Oh,
was
was he?
out of
Canadian.
Toronto. Yeah. Yeah, because he was SCTV. Remember, John Kennedy was Second City Television.
Yeah, Second State Television.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's a lot of these guys. They're really it's amazing stuff. It's amazing how much
Rick
talent.
Moranis. Oh,
Rick
That's what I was
Moranis,
trying
yeah.
to think of. Moranis. Yeah.
Oh,
Honey, I
classic.
Shrunk the Kids. Yeah, Rick Moranis. Yeah.
He's coming back too. Yeah, they're gonna do. Was it Dark Helmet? He's gonna
Oh, my
Spaceballs Part 2.
Another Spaceballs. Wow. Is
Yeah,
it Mel?
part
Is it
two.
Mel Brooks? Because he's in his
Mel
90s
Brooks.
now.
He's doing it. Yeah, he's doing it. 98 years old. He's doing it.
Well, I mean, I'm still waiting for History of the World Part 2. You know.
All right. Yeah. This is going to be great. I think it looks like a lot of the actors that are still around are going to basically reprise their role, which is going to be good.
Well, you can't. You can't. He can't make movies like that anymore. You know.
No.
It's like you just can't do that. The Inquisition. What a show. The Inquisition. You just can't do that, man. Hey, Torquemada, what you going to do? People would be so offended these days. Oh my goodness. So many things in comedy you just can't do anymore. It's just,
Yeah.
Hey guys, I was considering doing something this coming week on the 13th, 2 weeks away, 11 days. Somebody's in town, not here. I got offered free tickets to go to Connecticut. I'm like, that's a bit far to go. But Rick Springfield, who's almost 80 years old, is performing in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And so I went on to Ticketmaster, and I looked at the tickets and it said $76 for tickets. And it was like 2 rows up. Like, that's a deal. I clicked on it. It's 76 plus. It starts at 76. Those tickets were $320.
Oh,
so that was the end of that adventure.
Rick Springfield. Yeah, I'm not paying $320 to see.
I'm not paying $320 to see anybody, man.
No.
But Rick Springfield, I mean, it's probably the last chance to get to see the guy 78 years old. But it's a shame because I mean,
he's still trying to get Jesse's girl.
Yeah, I think that's gone. That's gone. Yes, I think he's missed out on that. But no. But do you know that Rick Springfield was like the USO equivalent tour? What the Aussies do? He went to Vietnam like in 1970, like 19 years old or something like that. Rick Springfield.
Wow.
Yeah, he just like our, like Bob Hope's tours, the Australians for their troops in in Asia when they were deployed in Vietnam and also in Korea. Before that, they'd have musicians come. And Rick Springfield went on tour to Vietnam. Wow.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Good deal.
Yeah, no, it would have been cool to see it, but $320 plus the gasoline, the driving, the hotel for overnight. Oof, man, no, not gonna happen.
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Outside the scope of my budget, it's too rich for my blood.
So some of this has gotten nuts now. Trying
It
to
is.
go to a concert anymore is just it's off the charts.
Yeah, I mean, look at 78. How much money do they need to make off this guy? How much money does he need to make? But Rick Springfield, very talented guy, good-looking guy for his age still too. So
It's my understanding, a lot of the arenas,
platonic manner.
a lot of
What's
the
that?
arenas and stuff are raking in the money.
Well, they must be.
$320 tickets. He gets probably maybe $50 of it, and
Well, I mean, to be fair, I suspect part of the inflation with ticket prices has something to do with the fact that the CD industry is dead. You just used to make money off CDs. They don't make money off CDs anymore.
Right.
So they got to make it somewhere. They're barely making anything off Apple or Spotify or Shazam and all that. So they got to make money somewhere. I think they're making most of their money in these concerts these days.
Right. Yeah. The live shows is where it's at. Because
everybody download them off Facebook or YouTube.
Well, yeah. Plus, they're doing all these different fan experiences and stuff. Whether it's at a sporting event or race, or whether it's a concert. It's versus just having a straightforward concert where you're in and you're out. There's all these other things that are happening at the same time. A lot of up and coming artists are on side stages and things like that. So they usually make these things into festivals as well, mini festivals.
It's always a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
If you can pull that off, you can get a lot more bang for your buck there.
Yeah.
Just depends how they're organizing it. But we're down to the wire here, guys, with the big, beautiful bill. And as we said, I don't think we're going to get there for Trump. I don't think we're going to quite make it.
Wow. If I was a betting man, I'd probably put some money on it.
Well, I don't bet.
I don't either. That's why I said if I was, because I don't throw my money away. I think going to the casinos and stuff is stupid. I'm sorry for those who like to go to the casinos, but you put that money on the table, you're giving it away.
Well, I mean, I don't mind people going to casinos because I go to Vegas and I like to watch people gamble. It's entertaining. So if they want to throw their money away,
they have some great venues when you go to places like Vegas. You don't have to go there just for gambling. I mean, they got great shows, great food, a lot of good stuff you can do there.
Well, a lot of casinos have that now. Just across the way from where I'm at here, Cherokee, North Carolina. Beautiful concert venue. A lot of people just show up for the shows. I mean, I was just over there for the Beach Boys a couple of weeks ago. People just show up for shows and don't even gamble. So there's other draws as well.
The Beach Boys, did Brian Wilson just die?
He died. He died
a couple days a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Was he there?
After that. No, he wasn't part of that, but he died just after that.
Okay. Okay, so now we got to talk about this bizarre case in Idaho, guys. I mean, I've delayed as long as I could towards the end of the show in case people aren't listening anymore. But what is the deal with this Brian Koberger dude who murdered these 4 people in Idaho? I never understood that story, what was going on. They caught him eventually. He pled guilty so he could avoid the death penalty. But did you guys follow that story at all where he killed those 4 college students? And how did he pull that off, killing all of them in the house when they're all there?
Right. Wait a minute. Is this an old case or is this something just happened?
It's an old case. He was just convicted.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. No, I mean,
college kid. It seems like I knew something about this, but wow, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's like, was he like? I mean, you had to keep him quiet somehow. I mean, like,
exactly. And these are all young people who are fit. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, no, this was in 2022, so 2.5 years ago. He murdered Kaylee Goncalves, 21, Madison Mogan, 21, Ethan Chapin, 20, and Zana Kamodal, 20. Killed 4 of them. It's insane.
Why? I mean, no motive behind it. He didn't say.
Yeah, I don't know that he ever admitted to a motive. I mean, the whole thing is crazy. He says the first 2 victims were sleeping when he stole into the campus house in Moscow, Idaho at 4:00 in the morning. Best friends Maddie Mogan and Kaylee Goncalves were in bed together as he butchered them with a K-bar knife. He killed them both in the bed. I mean, how did they not scream? How did they not fight him off? I've never understood this.
Well, I imagine you take the guy out first, but I mean, not that I contemplate this, but it's an easy.
2 chicas sleeping together in the bed.
2 girls.
Yeah.
But if you hit them so quickly in the jugular, they wouldn't, or in the lungs where they wouldn't be able to extreme out, maybe, if you stab them quickly.
Well, the prosecuting attorney, Bill Thompson, choked up as he summarized the details of the weeks-long trial that would have revealed the cold blood and ruthless bloodlust murders. So the families are bent out of shape. because they're getting no satisfaction out of this. This guilty plea, which has divided victims' families, including the Mogans and the Goncalves, means Thompson's rundown on the evidence may have been the best picture the world ever gets of what happened. So we still don't know because the trial didn't happen. This guy took a guilty plea and they let him have it. I would have wanted him to allocute. He should have allocated what he did.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's crazy.
And there's no way you can get into the guy's head to figure out why you did something. There's obviously it's not rational. It's just sick.
So I'm thinking to Chris's question: did these kids know him? So if they saw him, that they recognized him and didn't freak out so bad,
I don't know. It looked like he stalked the place because he moved from Pennsylvania. He lived with his parents in Pennsylvania. In March 2022, he bought a K-bar knife on Amazon, and that's the one he used to murder these people 8 months later. Then he moved to Pullman, Washington, just minutes from Moscow, Idaho, murder site, and he began to pursue a PhD in criminology at Washington State University. So by early July, 6 months before the murders, his phone began pinging off a cell tower that served the house, but only at odd hours of night. So clearly he was stalking the house.
Right.
During July and the night of the November murders, his phone pinged off that tower 23 times between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. Adding there was no evidence he ever had any direct contact with his victims during that time. But on the day of the killing, his phone was powered off at 2 a.m. before being turned back on when he got to Moscow at 5 a.m. Wow. During the blackout window, he drove his white Hyundai from his Pullman apartment and parked it behind the victim's Moscow house. Wearing a dark mask, he slipped into the home using kitchen's sliding door at 4 a.m. He then climbed to the home's third floor where he used a 7-inch K-bar blade to butcher Mogan and Gonzalez, both 21-year-old college seniors, as they slept alongside each other. There, he left this knife sheath. He had his DNA on it, which will later be used to ensure his downfall. Wow. He then stole out of the room when he encountered 20-year-old Komoda on the stairs. She had been awake after picking up a food delivery. He cut her down and left her dying where she stood. Her room was not on the third floor. It was on the second floor. Then he encountered Zana. He ended up killing her with a large knife. Koberger then moved into her bedroom where her boyfriend, 20-year-old Chapin, was sleeping and butchered him. Jeez. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I never got this. What's the motive? What's the deal here? But he's dodged the death penalty, and a lot of the families are very upset. Rightly so. Rightly so. That's just crazy. I remember he got away. They couldn't find him for a long time, too. That was crazy stuff, too.
Right. And trying to figure out what the motive was and what the connection is. You never know what some randos are doing out there. You just got to be your head on a swivel. And, I hate to say, you can't trust everybody that walks up to you with a sob story or, like hey, I'm a good person. I'm, yeah, you might be, but let's not trust everybody and be very careful, be vigilant. You could have somebody watching your house right now. I'm not saying that's going on, but you just be aware of your surroundings. People should just be cognizant of what's going on in their neighborhood.
Well, the thing about this case is that the public is divided on this, and social media, of course, too. Not that we should reference social media for our news coverage, but the public's divided. People are complaining. They're saying, well, nobody really needs to know what happened there. Only the families need to know about that. I don't think I agree with that because we need to know what the MO is or what the motivation was, right? Because you need to understand that to protect yourself. We don't need to hear the gruesome details of how stab wounds and stuff like that. But certainly we need to know what happened. We need to have an understanding of it. Otherwise, people can't protect themselves against this sort of stupidity in the future. It's pretty scary.
Right. Yeah. You learn from these types of things. You learn how to protect yourself, and security experts look at things like this. How did he get in the house so easy? Oh, it was the manufacturer, a defect on the door. Okay. We can work around that and fix that. You know what I mean? Things of that nature. That's why you need to know the elements of the crime. It's very important.
Yes, indeed. And I know you guys are desperate to hear this news, but porn star and Netflix star Kylie Page has died from a fentanyl overdose. 28-year-old.
Never heard of that person. So
I was going to say who.
my first reaction is who.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm assuming you just stumbled across that and figured it'd be just kind of humorous to throw it in.
No, I pulled it up earlier. I hold some of these things back, like the Koberger thing, in case we get through our news a little too soon, and this one here. But I mean, I'm like, who? Never heard of her. Never heard of her. Not exactly the Ivory Snow girl.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Marilyn Chambers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, generations of Americans know who that is, the Ivory Snow girl.
Yeah, but everybody has their own little porn channel nowadays, right? Everybody has
OnlyFans.
their own personal nonsense.
interesting statistic. If you look at the growth of OnlyFans, which is not just porn, but it's mostly porn.
Sure.
The number of accounts, it just keeps going like this. It's almost 5 million people have accounts on there now. And it's a company with 60% margins. 60% margins. Can you imagine that? That's better than Microsoft. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah. So anyway, is there anything in the tax bill that bothers either of you? Something you're worried about?
Well, there's too many pages in there to actually know what's in it. That's probably what bothers me most. It's the unknown that's in there.
Yeah. Do we actually know what's in it? Yeah.
A lot of people are concerned about cuts of Medicaid and stuff. What is they call it? Workers program or workers something, where you have to be a contributor to benefit. And they're saying, well, 11 billion people are going to lose their benefits and yada, yada, yada. And the concept is to encourage you to pay into it instead of being a freeloader on it. You know, we've had a lot of illegal aliens on it. We've had a lot of people that just don't, you know, they're leeches. And it's crippling our programs. You know, you want to have these social programs. You can't have people leeching off it and not be contributors when they're healthy.
But this is intentional. This is by the leftists to make Americans dependent on the state and to turn to the state to elect the big state so they can stay in power. We have 330 million people in this country legally and a bunch of others not legally here. 78 million adults and children are enrolled in Medicaid, not Medicare, Medicaid. Why are so many people enrolled in a free program that we, the rest of the country, are paying for? 24 million are enrolled in the Affordable Care Act's insurance program, which is the Obamacare nonsense. So that's over 100 million Americans. 1 in 3 Americans are living off the dole when it comes to medical. Why is that allowed to happen? That's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And they're talking about people at risk. Well, you shouldn't be living for free at other people's expense. That's not right. That's not right at all.
No, well, I mean, you know, if you're young and healthy and able-bodied, then yeah, you should be out there contributing one way or another. There are jobs out there. I mean, it's not like people aren't saying, hey, you know, we need employees here. You know, there are jobs available there. Sometimes they're not the most attractive jobs, but you know, work is available.
Right.
No, there's a lot of work available.
A lot of work, yeah.
But this reminds me of the nonsense with food stamps and the SNAP program, because we can't call it food stamps because that's demeaning to people, but that's what is food stamps. But they've expanded food stamps to people to make obscene amounts of money in a family of 4. We're talking about a wage they should be able to live off of, and they get food stamps. They've expanded the number of people. I remember there was like 25 or 30 million people getting food stamp benefits, and that's just the recipients, not the kids that are in that family and other family members. It's insane. This concept of entitlement is really wearing on this country. And of course, I'm going to get the nonsense that, well, you just heartless and not caring. No. But what you're doing is creating generational poverty and generational dependence and generational class envy from the people that actually pay their way and carry the load for everybody else. I see the situation in South Africa where just about 5 or 6 million taxpayers carry the rest of the country. 43 million people live off of public assistance. 43 million.
Yeah. Wow. So what's the percentage there in South Africa? That's got to be an exorbitant amount, the percentage wise.
Well, I mean, the total population, that's 2/3. It's
wow.
2/3.
Oh God. Yep. I mean, you're talking about collapse level here.
Well, they say that 27 million people are receiving grants, but 27 million people are heads of household, most likely. So they've got kids, they've got parents that live with them. And so, the number goes up to 43 million out of the 63 million people in the country. It's insane. Absolutely insane. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's unsustainable. At what point does that economy just collapse and just, turn to chaos?
Well, and that's where we're at. Look at the debt. We're approaching $40 trillion of federal debt. And that's just a piece of it, guys. We've talked about this before. The debt picture is never really discussed in its full context. You have to include unfunded pension liabilities. You have to include all the other things that are there, like the state debt, the county debt, corporate debt, credit card debt, mortgage debt. And suddenly we're looking at a headache that's quite large. We're looking at a lot of money. And that's just never really discussed in that context. And all we ever hear about the debt is the national debt with the federal government. Right. Well, what does the state of California owe in debt? What does Iowa owe? Most of these states don't have balanced budgets, so many of them are in debt and paying this debt off.
Most states are running a deficit.
Right. And then we have to pay interest on the bonds that they issue, the money they borrow, to pay that back. And that's money coming out of our pockets to pay for things that deliver nothing to many of us.
Well, it's ridiculousness. I remember, not necessarily be a cut against George Bush, but he did do it. He wagged his finger at the American people when we had our economic downturn and said they have a responsibility. Everybody has a responsibility to pay their bills. It's like, yeah, well, set the example. They're in the government, bro. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's a good place to start. Over in the chat, Holden Caulfield said United States credit rating was recently downgraded. You're correct, but it was bogus. Moody's downgraded our credit in purely political move despite Donald Trump. There's no justification for that. There was no difficulty approving a budget. We're operating under a continuing resolution. The debt has been getting piled on for years. There's no change from when Biden was president just a couple months later or earlier, and they did this. This is purely political nonsense, nonsense. I mean, you could have had issued the same warning anytime in the last 30 years because the debt's growing and because tax revenue wasn't covering. But this is purely political to undermine Donald Trump, and I pay no attention to Moody's downgrading because they prove they're an illegitimate bunch of political hacks.
So that you just said it right there, continuing resolution. Isn't that what we keep doing since the 1990s? We're just continually creating a resolution on the budget. We're not setting a balanced budget. We're not resetting ourselves.
Well, we're not even approving a budget. We're just going through the motions and just, okay, carry the spending levels, keep carrying forward. And then they keep adding new laws that add more benefits and more advantages. So
we need Congress to do a job and sit down and actually balance this budget, figure out what they can afford to spend. And
not going to happen. Not going to happen.
But it's got to. What are we going to do as a nation when it's $70 trillion, $80 trillion? I mean, where are we going to come up with this money? We can't just keep creating it. Are we going to dig it out of the ground? I mean, we're going to just extract all the gold from the earth and from the people. And I mean, we can't just steal everybody's money and say, well, we got to pay our debts. Sometime sooner or later, it's got to come to an end.
Well, the bigger problem here, not just that, is not the debt burden, but the consequence of the Federal Reserve raising interest rates. So much of this debt over the past 20 years was borrowed at near zero interest rates or 1% or less. So the government is paying back less than 1%, which means that the money they're paying back, future revenue, is worth less than the current amount they borrowed. That's how that works. So with inflation, that dollar gets worth less and you're paying it back at a lower value. So you're coming out ahead. But the problem is that the interest rates are too high right now. And so now we're paying more on the national debt than any discretionary program, even more than defense. We spend $900 billion a year on defense. We're spending over $1 trillion a year paying off the debt. That's insane.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, unsustainable. Yeah, and at some point, we're going to collapse ourselves as a society. But what does collapse look like in America? What does it look like to the rest of the world when it happens?
Looks like California.
I used to entertain the thought they talked about a great reset. I thought, well, was that why they're spending wildly? Is because they're planning on resetting all dollar values throughout the globe and starting over with a clean slate? I don't know. I think it's that sounds nefarious too, doesn't it? I mean, so you're just going to wipe everything clean and everybody's going to start with a clean slate, and something's wrong with that.
Yeah, let's hope not. That's definitely not what we want. We don't want to see the dollar devalued or something like that. That would have devastating global consequences.
That's what's happening though. And I mean, okay, so let's talk about crypto. Obviously, there's a move towards crypto. So is that going to be our salvation in this? Is that because things like Bitcoin are worth so much that if we although they have what we call stable coin compared to your normal cryptocurrency, so stable coin doesn't gain any value. So I guess that's really not the answer, is it?
Well, crypto is only worth what people are willing to pay for it, and that value goes up and down. So it's speculative, and that's the problem I have with it. Mm-hmm. Also, I don't buy the fact that it can't be broken and blockchain technology can't be broken. I worked at the National Security Agency. You put enough computing power against it, you can defeat anything. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, anybody can create it. That's the thing about it. I mean,
well, that's right. Someone could create a new version of it, right? That we do. We've got Ethereum. We've got Dogecoin. We've got Bitcoin. We've got so many different
Bitcoin Lite.
Yeah, I mean, it gets confusing and people don't know how to use it. So a lot of them. Then you also have the possibility that people, forget the code to their secure drive, or the drive dies and they haven't got it backed up somewhere, and the money's gone forever.
I thought that was stored on somebody else's server. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, there was a plot device on the movie or TV show Billions that was recently out in the last few years. That's a good. I think HBO had that out. You get a chance to watch Billions. It was great.
Yeah, no, I didn't see that. It didn't sound very
great plot device.
Okay, well, interesting one. But yeah, no, it's the Bitcoin is speculative. You might as well invest in pork bellies, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. So there's no salvation in crypto regarding our debt or ability to pay back our debt or overcome it.
No, not my view. Not my view.
Yeah, like I said, they do. I do realize saying that, because you're looking at Bitcoin is a type of cryptocurrency that's on the market, and then you've got stablecoin, and stablecoin just levels out with the dollar value. There's no benefit of it.
Well, the dollars
you just have a crypto. You're just changing your paper money into crypto.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be a finite amount, and that's the problem with the dollar. That's why the dollar is worth less, in part because we've been printing money endlessly.
Right.
They've increasing the money supply. So economists talk about the M1, M2, and M3 money supply. That's different types of financial instruments, whether it's cash or it's stocks and bonds or treasury notes. So the actual cash in the economy has been so inflated because under quantitative easing they printed more money and increased the money supply. So the bigger the pile of money that's available, the less dear or precious it is. But people are willing to pay less for it. And that's one reason why the dollar is in trouble. That plus all the speculation, plus Jerome Powell. I mean, I saw the chart that Trump put the other day of all these countries and interest rates, and we're like way down here, one of the worst interest rates on the planet. We're down with countries that are basket cases that are falling apart. That's not even remotely an accurate reflection of what's going on in the American market. Jerome Powell needs to leave. He needs to resign. He is an impediment to the health of this country's economy with his slow foot dragging over lowering interest rates. They should have been lowered a long time ago. It's doing incalculable damage to our economy by discouraging trade and discouraging investment and growth because people have to pay unwarranted taxes. It's insane. Tax in the form of they pay more to borrow the money. That's what I'm talking about. It's not a real tax, but you get my point. I mean, the difference between paying a mortgage at 3% and paying a mortgage at 4% is about $1,000 a month or something like that, depending on the length of the loan. That's insane. That little bit change doesn't sound like much, but it has a huge impact on borrowers, and it puts a brake on the housing industry. And the housing industry employs all kinds of people: plumbers, masons, carpenters, engineers, backhoe drivers, lots of people. And then the place gets built, and then it generates revenue for property taxes. Anyway, so it's just Jerome Powell needs to go. And that's not because Trump said it. That's what I say. I've had enough of the guy. He needs to go. We've had so many disastrous Federal Reserve chairmen in a row.
Yeah,
I mean,
we're
the likes of people like Paul Volcker and Lee Greenspan.
Oh, yeah, the tall man. Yeah.
And Greenspan.
They ignored him.
Yeah.
They ignored the Paul Volcker.
Alan Greenspan and Paul Volcker were brilliant, heads of the Federal Reserve. The people we get now are just political operatives.
Yeah, I remember an article that I read several years ago. Is ignoring the tall man, talking about Paul Volcker and how our economy has suffered by the presidents ignoring what his advice, essentially.
Well, we're in the same boat now.
He doesn't answer the president, right? The Federal Reserve.
No, he had a great advice that was just completely ignored.
Oh, I got you. Just
Right.
No, but your point is correct. The Federal Reserve is ostensibly independent, but its director is appointed by the president, so it's not entirely independent, if you get my point.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge. But we're coming up on the end of the show, guys. I mean, I don't want to miss anything important. Did I not cover a topic here you want to get to, Todd, before we run out of time?
No, I think we're all right there. Did we discuss anything Iran, Israel related? Where are we at with that? No. How do we come out of that on the other side of that?
Well, Iran is going back to the Stone Age.
Soon.
Yeah, if they're not already there. No, it's. I think we covered it all. I mean, Trump did what needed to be done, and we go forward from here while the media runs around and tries to, sharpshoot Trump's performance in Iran. I think Trump did the right thing. He saved the world. Like I said, on November 5th, we saved America, and maybe we saved the world. It looks like we saved the world, guys.
Absolutely. Andre's tuning in from California. Good stuff for Andre. Thank you, Andre. Navy veteran, by the way.
Okay.
We won't hold that against him.
I'm sorry, Andre. Were you abused as a child? You don't have to answer that question. No, it's all right. We love our Navy veterans. They're fantastic at taking the Marines around to come in after we do the hard work. Boy, that's going to stir some anger from the Marines.
Yeah, I was going to say the Marines are proud about being first in.
Well, they are first in some places. They're an expeditionary force, but oftentimes the Army is first, and we're there last too. So they forget that. We stay when everyone else has gone home. We're still there
doing the paperwork. Yep. And what do we owe you? We blew up what of yours? Yes. Okay. Here you go.
I had a friend in the Marines who used to ask, what do you get when you sent out 300 sailors? And the answer to that was 150 couples. Now that used to be funny back in the day. Today, you know, with the standards today, nobody laughs.
I think with that, we're going to end our broadcast for tonight before the FCC takes us off the air. All right, folks, that's Common Sense Conservatives once again, 2 July 2025. We'll see you next week on the 9th of July when the tariff letters go out around the world from Donald Trump. Cheers.